Hey guys, welcome back to another video by Pyrrhic Victoria. I'm Pyrrhic.
And I'm Victoria.
And this is the 5th video in our series of Lore Olympus analysis videos, where we are going to discuss episodes 111 onward. And I say onward and not up to a specific episode, because that backfired last time, because we did not go nearly as far as we wanted to in covering the chronology of the story. So hopefully we can see where we get to today and have some interesting discussions going forward.
We're going to have a lot of discussion because we're going to go all the way up to the Act of Wrath.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's going to be an entire discussion in and of itself. So
yeah,
strap yourselves in. Get something to drink, get something to eat, or do whatever it is you do when you listen to our videos.
Yeah.
As long as it's not illegal.
Yes. So just to briefly, I guess, go over the episodes that we read in preparation for this video and the last video. It covers up till the first 15 episodes of season 2, right?
Yeah, it goes from episode 115, which is the last episode of season 1, and then 116 to 130. And we're still covering that ground.
Yeah.
Because like we said in the last episode, nothing really happens. I mean, I guess something happens, but like for the amount of episodes that pass, 30 episodes, and that's like what, 7 months in real life, 7.5 months in real life.
Oh, man.
Only like 2 real events happen.
Right.
Which is the Act of Wrath is revealed, and then Zeus issues an arrest warrant. But like nothing else I can't tell you what else happens that's like story relevant. I mean, we cover Ares' background, but who cares about that? Yeah,
I remember at the end of the 3rd video in this series, you would ask me, what do you think is going to happen in the next 30 episodes or something? And I said, oh gosh, I don't know. I know there's a trial, and I know Minty gets turned into a plant.
Yeah.
So I thought that was what's gonna, be, I guess, the story for the next 30 episodes from, our 3rd video onward, which was, we stopped right at episode 100. So
yes.
I thought between 100 and 130, something like that would have happened.
No, we covered very little ground.
Yeah, it took a total left turn that I wasn't expecting. I was like,
yeah, Ares was introduced, and then I guess Apollo Thanatos learned of the Act of Wrath, and then from there, the Act of Wrath was revealed to the audience as Minty, Thanatos, and Thetis all told Zeus, and then Zeus issued an arrest warrant. But was that really enough material to cover over 7.5 months? Like, I feel like you could have covered it in like 10 episodes if you were really efficient with your storytelling.
Yeah,
because in that amount of time, they also went to the moral realm. They had Ares' backstory.
Yeah.
They had the dog adoption scene. Like, there's so many pointless scenes in that 30 episodes that you could just cut.
Yeah.
And you would have been able to show the Act of Wrath much sooner. Actually, give it some build up, because when it comes out of nowhere, and it only takes up like half an episode.
Yeah, and there's no, like we've been saying throughout this entire series, nothing from Persephone, like thinking about it, feeling guilty about it, which could have been really interesting and nightmarish, but
no aftermath.
Yeah, no aftermath. And kind of like bringing us into this episode 111, the only time we kind of get this look at like the second side of Persephone, like the dual nature of her, is in this episode, and
it doesn't come up ever again.
No. So I guess we could just get into it.
Yeah.
Starting with episode 111. So this is right after she turns into butterflies, after kissing Hades on the side of the building.
Yeah, that was what we left off with.
Yeah, the sudden smash cut to them. And so we have the butterflies coming down to Artemis's house. We've got these nice 3 panels of Artemis holding the same pose.
Yeah, I know. Not even blinking.
No, and she's like blurry in a couple of them. And you can see Persephone kind of rematerializing behind one of these targets that Artemis uses for target practice, and she's naked. And you've got that odd panel of her, very small, running into the house.
Yeah, this panel is really weird. She looks like a kid, and then also the anatomy is really bad. I don't know if it's supposed to be chibi, but like she doesn't do chibi in this art style, so it just looks creepy. Yeah. Like it just looks like a kid.
Yeah, and so Persephone, she comes into the window, she falls on the ground, I guess a little bit of humor. But again, the motion is very stiff. It's very, from one panel to the next, you don't really see a lot of motion there.
Oh, dude. Like, this panel where she's coming in and then she goes, like, those look like they should have been reversed.
Yeah, she was supposed to be, like, falling into the room and then landing on her butt.
No, but then she just, like, cuts to her on the ground. Like,
exactly.
There's no, actual panel of her falling.
No, and then you've got her parting her hair with her hands. Again, the hands have to be, like, way...
No, if you're parting your hair, it'd be like this.
You would see that, but, she's obviously going in this way.
Yeah, because she, like, for some reason, when the characters do anything with their hands, there's never a connecting wrist or arm
No.
that is included. It's
Yeah.
very common in the recent episodes as well.
Yeah, so she heads to the bathroom, gets changed, and she starts chastising herself for freaking out and turning into butterflies. And she goes, "You finally get to kiss him, and you turn into butterflies? Trust us, Persephone, we are just as confused as you, because the butterflies..."
The butterflies came out of nowhere.
No.
Previous to this, we'd only seen like a bunch of plant life appear out of nowhere. Like when he turned into Kronos that one time, she just exploded into a bunch of plants.
Yeah.
We've never seen butterflies before, so this did come out of nowhere. It just, like, there was no foreshadowing, no build-up, and then all of a sudden she just turns into butterflies.
Yeah, and I mean, just in general, the powers thing, you should have more control over your powers by now, not less. Again, you know, if she has this display of power after kissing Hades, really confusing as to why, like, I hate to go back to the Apollo and the assault, but, you know, it just seems like in context with one another, you would have expected her to have some sort of, like, reaction with her powers at that time period, right?
If her powers are guided by strong displays of motion,
Yeah.
then why didn't she turn into a bunch of undergrowth when Apollo showed up? Why didn't she turn into a bunch of butterflies then? Because she said like, later on, she says, I guess I was scared of my body's reaction. So why didn't she turn into a bunch of butterflies when Apollo was assaulting her? Why didn't she explode with vegetation, like, angrily? Because with the act of wrath, she exploded and, like, genocided an entire village.
Yeah, she could have...
So why, if the trigger is her being really angry, why didn't anything happen with Apollo? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, fine, you can have that scene with Apollo, but that doesn't really make sense with what she's trying to have her have with the Act of Wrath backstory. It's like either one or the other. Either she goes off at the drop of a hat and becomes really wrathful, then have her react like that to Apollo, or if she's really meek and withdrawn and disassociates, then why does she have trouble controlling her powers and have strong emotional reactions resulting in her powers exploding?
Yeah.
Because that's not what happened when Apollo attacked her.
No.
There was no reaction with her powers at all.
No.
And the other thing is with the powers is that I still don't know what she can do. I still don't know what she can or can't do. Like, so far we've seen plants growing, but we've never seen butterflies. Like, that's a living creature. That's not a plant. So where did the butterflies come from?
Yeah.
Like, I was telling Pyrrhic this off camera, but I was just saying, you know, I really think the butterflies are only in here because Y2K is a really popular aesthetic, and butterflies were everywhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. So Rachel was, like, scrolling Instagram and going, like, oh yeah, butterflies, I can put that in my comic.
Yeah, and also butterflies, I know there's, like, pins, like merch, that have a lot to do with the moth and the butterfly visuals.
Yeah.
You know, and when she's with Apollo, she's terrified. She's like petrified, right? It would have been interesting if she turned into like solid wood, or if she like impaled him with a giant tree or something like that. And also, like, it's implied earlier in the story when she's really angry at Hades because of all the rumors going around in school because of the paparazzi. That's like Ares working her up when she's standing in line. Right?
When she's standing in line, but she was mad at Hades or upset with Hades before she even got there. That's why she went there in the first place.
Yeah.
And she was upset with Apollo without Ares even being in the same room. And the Act of Wrath happened without Ares even being there.
Exactly.
So it's just completely inconsistent.
That's where we're
It's like, what the heck? Like, what type of character is she? Does she go off at the drop of a hat, aka Act of Wrath? Or is she just like a helpless little being who doesn't feel anger?
Yeah.
AKA like what happened with Apollo, and then like when she said, oh, Ares was making me angry. I'm not angry. I'm upset, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, during the liar scene, she could have like messed him up.
Yeah.
But she didn't, so. Yeah, so she goes, you should have more control over your powers by now, not less. And she says it's so embarrassing. And then her reflection sort of takes on this different personality. And she goes, don't cry to me. I would have devoured him by now. You're the one that lost the plot over a kiss. There's a reason why everyone thinks you're a baby. And when I read that, I was like, dude, this sounds like something Thetis would say. It doesn't sound like Persephone. We've never seen this side of her.
No,
like,
we've never seen this side of her. And it comes out of nowhere where she's suddenly wearing like this Instagram baddie outfit.
Yeah.
Like something Kylie Jenner would wear, this skin tight patterned outfit. And she's like super cynical and like a man-eater or whatever, but it's like this is coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
She's never had this dual side to her personality. She's never even talked to herself before because we, like we've said in previous episodes, we get nothing from Persephone. She's got the personality of like a wafer, you know?
Yeah.
She has the depth of a freaking like, I don't know, 1 micron thick like Teflon coating or something.
Yeah, carbon, what's that carbon coating that they made? The one, like, it's like 1 molecule of carbon thick. Special. I'll have to look it up later, but it's on the tip of my tongue. But that's what she is. That's her depth.
That's her depth.
Only see it with a scanning electron microscope.
Right.
But
If she turned sideways, she would disappear. That's how deep she is.
Exactly. And she goes, I mean, honestly, the reason why everyone thinks you're a baby is because she's drawn like a baby.
It's because she's drawn like a baby, and she acts like a baby.
She acts like a baby around
and
men.
like this like insecurity around like, oh yeah, you're a baby and no one likes you because you're so childish. It's like, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This came out of nowhere. If she was so concerned with being childish, then why does she have stickers in her planner? Like, that was shown in a previous episode. Why does she have stickers in her planner?
Yeah.
Why does she talk to the cat? Why does she write with fuzzy pens and go, oh my god, look, Retsuna, I get paid for my internship.
Yeah, it changed from, like, the stupid village girl, which I think was fine. Could have kept the stupid village girl thing and went with it, to like, everyone thinks you're a child and nobody takes you seriously. I mean, that just... Those are kind of two totally different things.
They're very different
right?
things. One is being unsophisticated and naive and not wise to the ways of the world, and the other one is, like, incapable actual child, which she's never been accused of, and which, like, she's never been insecure of?
No.
Ever.
No, she's only used to her advantage. If this is supposed to be some sort of, like, foreshadowing for her vengeful, like, rage-filled side, the context is all wrong. Talking about, like, oh, what, it's not a big deal, it's just a kiss with Hades. I mean...
Well, the setup is all wrong, too. It
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. It came out of literally nowhere.
Yeah, and then it goes away just as quickly as it came, and then we cut to a picture of Oracle, which is, like, it's
Google.
Yeah, it's a Google equivalent, Oracle. And Hades... idiot that he is searching why would a goddess turn into butterflies, and there's about 16.5 million results.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't actually read any of them.
No.
And then
He just stares, after it gets the result, he just stares at it like,
I wish I knew how to read.
I wish I knew how to click on these hyperlinks.
Yeah.
Maybe he clicked on the top one, which is like a Viagra ad or something, and then he was like, I'm getting nowhere.
Yeah. And then he starts launching into how he messed up the boundaries and wondering if he should call her, and he goes, no, I should give her some space, I hope she's alright.
I should have had better self-control.
Creepy panel.
Creepy panel from Hades' perspective. We see how he sees Persephone here, blaming her for his actions again.
And he goes, I'm the one that's thousands of years old. Yes, Hades, you are thousands of years old, you creepy dude. And then he starts F-bombing, why did I kiss her? I told her that I wanted her. And then he blames the dog, I guess for comedy.
But it's not funny.
Yeah, it's like...
Did anyone laugh when they read this? I didn't laugh.
I just kind of looked around like, this is not funny. And then we cut to Minty.
But this is also an echo of what he did to the wine bottle in that one episode. In the wine, when he read the letter Hecate gave him that said, I met the king of the underworld. He's like, how could I have forgotten? Somehow this is your fault. And he looked at the wine bottle.
Oh, yeah.
So this is just repeating a joke, but it's a dog.
And
but at least the wine bottle made sense, and it, like, gave insight into his character.
The dog is sitting in the Eames chair very strangely. Look at its paws.
Oh, God. What is going on here?
Its butt disappears into the back of the Eames chair.
Are its legs broken? What the heck?
I don't know, but yeah, and, like, perspective-wise to Hades, you know, where his feet are in the bottom of the chair and where the dog is, just doesn't make any sense. But, yeah, then we cut to Minty in the void with the block again.
This looks exactly like that other picture where she was crying, so I need to do some digging to see if this is a trace over that other picture, because it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, and so she's getting all gussied up to go back into the office.
No, that took place in the office.
That's in the office?
Yeah, that's in the office.
Oh, I thought it was her apartment because it's the same block.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's so confusing. Every time I look at a new panel in this comic, because there's so little detail, I don't know where we are in time and space. It's really disorienting. I think that was in the office, like the office bathroom or something. But you wouldn't know because there's no mirrors, there's no faucet, there's no stalls. Everyone's just in the void now. It's really weird.
There are whirring noises, and I guess this is like a copying machine?
I guess, but I can't tell you because there's no detail.
But the weird thing is, why would you show her pulling down her skirt, like adjusting her skirt, whirring noises in a copying machine? The implication is that she photocopied a picture of her butt. You know? That's where my mind goes.
Right.
Like,
I didn't even realize that was a copying machine in the first place.
Butt on the copying machine gag.
No, but like, in the beginning of the comic, when she saw the picture of Persephone, like the paparazzi photo, she went to the bathroom to like touch up her makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
And in that scene, there were mirrors, there were sinks, there were stalls. Do you remember that? There's someone else in the bathroom who was giving her a weird look.
Yeah.
We don't get anything like that now. We get no indications of time or place.
No.
Everything is just a void with like one defining feature. So like in that panel, it was one block. In this panel, it's just the copy machine. Like this whole comic has become postmodernist surrealism. It's really weird.
Why would she put her lipstick on in the copying room?
I don't think she's putting her lipstick on in the copying room because it looks like she's looking at a mirror. Like this must be the bathroom.
Is that even lipstick or is it like a croissant?
It's lipstick.
It looks like a curled, like a horn or something, like the tip of a croissant.
No, it's lipstick. My big question is why is she doing this to the table? Like her hand is doing this, but it's not resting on the table. It's like this.
Yeah.
It's weird. This whole episode is so weird.
Yeah, so she's got her paper and her coffee. These are
like, I don't even know if that's coffee. It just looks like an ice cream jar. That doesn't even look like a coffee mug. Like how is that I just assume it's a coffee mug because she's in the office, but it could be an ice cream jar for all I know. It has no detail.
You know what? It's got no steam coming out.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't even have a partition for the mouth. Like, there's not even a rim. You know, coffee cups have a rim on the upper part with a little hole for the mouth partition. That takes 2 seconds to draw, and they couldn't even draw that. So it's just like a jar with a flat lid. So that could be a jar of mayonnaise for all you know. I don't know what it is. I just assume it's coffee because she's in the office.
Hades likes his mayonnaise straight from the jar.
Exactly.
8 a.m. sharp.
Exactly.
Mayonnaise. Yeah.
Get mayo.
And so she comes to his office, and this is something Victoria pointed out while we were because we had to reread these episodes because we had no idea what was going on.
No.
But she pointed out that the modern art on the wall, the triangles, it kind of forms a halo around Minty's head.
And Hades' head.
Yeah. It's not in the background, really. It looks like it's a bunch of, like, stuff flying around her, like shrapnel.
Yeah, it looks like it's being summoned by her, but get this, she's holding the coffee by the lid! Why? Why would you draw her holding coffee by the lid? Exactly! And in the previous panel where she's holding the papers like this, like, they couldn't even bother to, like, have lines around it to show her, like, you know, straightening the papers out.
Yeah, like stack.
You know, like stack. Like, it's like little details that take 2 seconds to draw. They couldn't be bothered.
No.
It's really weird.
Yeah, so she gives the morning report and the coffee, and he says thank you. She crosses her arms, and then she turns. Again, you know, no movement in between panels.
No.
And it's just a copy-paste of the previous panel. And she's got, like, these shaky lines around her, but she looks happy. And he goes, oh, Minty, yes, you can email the report in the future to save paper. As if Hades would care about saving paper, honestly. Like, he's such a wasteful capitalist.
I know, he doesn't care about saving anything.
And then in that panel with her walking away, you see that Hades' desk actually doesn't exist. It's just part of the void now.
It's just like a line, and then there's no legs. Hades has no legs. He has no feet.
No, it's because the way it's actually a large bed, and he just sits like this, and that's a blanket in front of him.
Yeah, there's no detail in this panel. It's so weird.
Yeah. So she gets back to her desk, and then you have this exchange with her and Thetis, where the colon is on the wrong side of Minty's name.
No, and it's bolded in the earlier parts, but then they forgot to bold it in the later parts.
Yeah.
It's just like every panel has something wrong with it. It's crazy.
There's not even any timestamps for when these messages are being sent.
No. Because Rachel doesn't even know her own timeline. But this is Wednesday. This is supposed to be Wednesday. This is the day after Hades and Minty broke up.
Okay, Wednesday. Got it.
I'd also like to point out that Minty's shirt changes color like at least 3 times in this episode. Yeah. Like there's at least 3 different people drawing this episode, and one of them draws Minty like much better and like more canon, and the other one draws her like, what is that?
Like an NPC.
Yeah, like an NPC.
Yeah. So she's typing at her station, and then Persephone is there standing at the desk. Persephone didn't say anything like hello or anything like that.
No, she just spied on Minty like a creep.
She's just staring at her. And so then she goes, oh, hello. And then Minty, suspecting that Persephone just wants to talk to Hades, says he's in meetings back to back. And so then she goes, actually, I'm here to see you. And she goes, me? Hades isn't enough? What else do you want from me? You want my lunch now too? And she says, I want you to teach me how to use the computer. And she goes, what? I know the basics, but I'm struggling with the software. I mean, what makes you think Minty would know the software? She's like the office secretary, right?
She's an executive assistant.
Yeah, she's an assistant.
She would only have familiarity with, like, the scheduling.
Right.
Basically, like, Outlook. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think Minty would have done intake.
No, I mean, Hecate would know, right? Yeah, so I mean, like, what's even the purpose of this exchange? Because what comes out of this exchange, apart from Minty again saying, oh, I know more about you than you think, Persephone. I mean, it just shows Persephone being manipulative because she basically blackmails Minty by saying, I'm going to tell people that you sent me to Tower 4. And
the biggest thing is that it just proves what we were saying in the previous episode, where we were saying that when she could get away with being a jerk to Ares or like calling Demeter on Ares, she did, and that was manipulative, because she was acting like a poor innocent little kid in front of Demeter to get rid of Ares for her.
Yeah.
And then when it came to the paparazzi in the hospital, it's the same way, where it's like when she can get away with bullying someone, she totally takes the chance. She seizes the chance. So here, she can get away with bullying Minty because she has blackmail on her, even though Minty didn't intend for anything bad to happen to her in Tower 4. She didn't know that she was a fertility goddess.
Yeah.
And that is apparently the only reason why the Shades reacted that way. Minty had no idea. Minty just wanted to send her on a wild goose chase. But she's using this opportunity, instead of just, like, telling Hades and getting Minty fired, she's gonna hold it over her for all eternity to get Minty to do her dirty work. Which is, like, it's fine if she's a manipulative character, but the narrative doesn't want you to think that she's manipulative. The narrative wants you to think that she's a sweet, cute, naive, innocent little flower who has no flaws whatsoever.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. From the perspective of the narrative, like the intention. What is the intention supposed to be? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to show, like, Persephone, oh, you go, girl.
It's a you go, girl scene.
Get back at Minty.
Yeah, it's a you go, girl scene. Even though, supposedly, Persephone felt guilty at breaking up Minty and Hades.
Yeah.
But I don't think she does, because at no point does she ever show, like, when she saw that Minty and Hades broke up, she doesn't say, hey, Minty, I'm sorry about what happened to you and Hades. I just wanted to let you know that wasn't my intention. That doesn't happen here.
Not only that, but she says, you know, if you don't help me, I'm going to give this to Hecate, but basically the instructions of you telling me to go to Tower 4.
And that panel is so creepy.
Yeah, where she's holding it up with those motion lines.
And she has no mouth.
But how come she doesn't say, I'll tell Hades? Or how come she doesn't say, like, I don't know, like, how come she didn't tell Hecate anyway? I mean, aren't people wondering, like, why did you go there? Like, how did that
probably
even
just
happen?
think she's dumb. Which she is. They're not wrong.
There was no, like, internal investigation from HR to figure out how that happened, because that's a security liability. That's a big...
There's no procedures or policies in Underworld Corp in general. It's a very poorly run company.
Yeah, and so then we get a panel of Minty helping her out.
This panel is also terrifying.
Oh, yeah. So, then Minty starts talking about how when Hades and her first started out, he'd do anything for her. Kind of like how he treats Persephone now, but, you know, Minty doesn't really have insight into that, so I don't know what she's talking about.
What do you mean?
You know, she goes, when Hades and I first started out, he'd do anything for me like he treats you now. How does she know? I mean, she hasn't really seen them interact with each other.
No, but for Minty, remember when Thetis was telling her over drinks? From her perspective, she thinks that the reason that Persephone has this high-level, sought-after internship is because Hades' shows her favoritism.
Yeah.
And as far as she knows, you know, maybe there was office gossip, but this is not canon. This is me speculating. But he took her to the bank on personal time. He gave her the personal tour. You know, he basically treats her way better than he treats any other intern. Like, he's a dick to his employees. They show you that with how he treats Thanatos. And the employees don't get paid, usually. And she started early. And she never even applied for this internship. She just got it. So from Minty's perspective, all of these things are just landing in her lap because Hades likes her.
Yeah, but don't they see on the application for the internship? Like, Thanatos found the application for the internship, right? Mm-hmm. He saw that it was by Hera, right? The application was sent on Hera's behalf. So,
I don't think it... Did she sign the application?
Yeah.
I don't know. The logic in this friggin' comic doesn't really make any sense. But as far as Minty knows, the only reason he went along with this is because he favors her. Which is true. He wasn't going to give it to her initially. And then he decided, yeah, I'll give it to you because that was in the same episode where he glimpsed her under things.
Yeah. Well, anyway, she goes on about how he looks at her and how he'll drop anything he's doing to please you and the gifts.
And is she wearing her comb here?
I can't tell. It's not detailed enough. I think it's just
I think it's the comb.
No, I don't think that's the comb.
I think it's the comb.
I think that's a scrunchie. I don't think it's the comb.
Oh, well, I've seen her wear the comb to the office. And that's the comb that Hades gave her.
Yeah, but nobody knows that except
And he gave her the fur coat that he wouldn't give Minty in, like, the first couple episodes.
Yeah, but she's never worn it again. She doesn't even have it anymore.
Yeah, but Minty doesn't know that. So as far as she knows, he's giving her really lavish gifts. And she got this prestigious internship that she wouldn't have otherwise gotten. But here's the thing, when Minty explains the program to her, it's like so, like, duh. Like, is this program, like, written in Polish or something where she can't understand the language?
Yeah, it's very simple.
It's very simple. Like, Persephone just comes off as stupid. She's stupid, but also manipulative. That's what she comes off as.
Yeah. So then she says, look, Hades and I aren't together. There's no reason for you to do whatever this is. I'm sorry that you broke up. And she goes, you're not sorry at all. Don't worry, he'll take me back the moment he realizes you're not what he signed up for. And then
she's not sorry. It's true. She's not sorry. I mean, the panel where she's saying, look, Hades and I aren't together. There's no reason for you to do whatever this is. She looks completely blasé, like she doesn't give a crap about Minty.
Yeah.
And she's not sorry.
She's not.
She's 100% not sorry because this same day, she calls Hades and asks him to sleep with her. So she's not sorry. She's not sorry at all. She's not guilty at all. She before Hades and Minty broke up, they had the boundaries conversation. The second they broke up, she's like, oh, can you sleep with me? I'm not feeling well.
Yeah, let me just call him over. Let me just, summon him. Summon him over. Yeah, so then, Minty says, don't worry, he'll take me back the moment he realizes you're not what he signed up for. And then Persephone says, what do you mean by that? She goes, you tell me, Corey. And then Thanatos shows up all burnt because he got close to Helios, so his hand and his face is in a cast. But, I mean, this is all taking place in, the same day. That cast disappears, hours later, chronologically.
Yeah, it does.
So there's no real reason, I guess, for,
by that same day, or by that same... I don't know, the next day, Friday, he doesn't have the cast on anymore.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a gag or something. So then he's in a real rush to get them out, and then they're whispering. I guess they're just going, because they end up going to tell Zeus about what happened. Yeah. Right? So I guess he got a meeting, an audience with Zeus, and that's what they're going towards. Yeah. And so then we cut to the Fates getting the shiny retro VCR that is the Hades and Persephone memory, and that's the end of episode 111. So
took you long enough. Just because you put a lampshade on it doesn't make it any better. No. The fact that it's literally been 40 episodes, just because you put a lampshade on it doesn't mean it's any better. That took almost a year to get to that plot point again.
No, and I would say honestly, if I was reading this a week at a time, and I was really curious about what the memory was, because at the end of that scene they say it's natural for a king to be curious about his future queen, and she looks really tanky and different, totally different from the Persephone that we know on those TV screens. When you get to what the actual contents of the memory are,
it's such a letdown.
It's disappointing.
It's such a letdown.
I would have been disappointed if I was a legitimate fan who'd been waiting, 40 weeks, to see what the contents of the memories were.
I can't believe she went back to that plotline almost a year later.
Yeah, I feel
when was the VCR was introduced before the slap? It was episode 60 something, right?
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
It was before even our last video. Yeah. So it's been more than 30 episodes.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It was in the second or third video. Yeah, it's been 40 episodes.
So then we cut to Persephone at class at the beginning of episode 112, and she gets handed a D, and then the professor tells her in front of everybody, hey, kid, idiot, your grades have been slipping recently, Parker. And she goes, I'm sorry, I'll try harder. And he goes, you don't need to apologize, it's just not like you. Again, for everybody to hear. And then
why does she have the flower crown here? Does she like the teacher too?
No, I can't tell if this is an accessory that she's wearing or if it's her powers.
I can't tell either.
I think it's an accessory. Because it looks like leaves instead of flowers. But then we get that panel that you really liked of her looking down.
That's so bad. She has no chin. She looks like a turtle in that panel.
Yeah. So then she walks home while her classmates whisper, presumably about her, behind her back. And
why would they follow her and whisper? Can you imagine if you're walking down the hallway and your bullies are following 2 steps behind you going... What the heck?
It's very cartoonish.
It's so cartoonish.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's supposed to be she's still got a bad reputation.
But if you wanted to show that, you there's so many panels here that are kind of a waste. The first one and the second one are wasted panels. And then he hands her the paper, and then she says, oh, and then he says, your grades have been slipping recently. You could have combined that into 3 panels And then you could have had somebody behind her, like one of her classmates, like elbow the other and be like, you think she got a D? Because she's been playing with Hades D. You know? Like have that like really loudly whisper, and then she goes like, oh my god, like this is so embarrassing.
But you know,
you didn't have to have them follow her and go like, whisper, whisper. Like, again, it just seems like she didn't plan this out. She didn't have a script. She was writing it as she was drawing it. And then she was like, oh yeah, I forgot to show that her classmates are still bullying her. And instead of just writing that into your script, like going back and being like, oh yeah, let me add that to my script before I start drawing it. Again, she started drawing it and she was like, too late to change it now. Let me just quickly cut to the next scene because I don't care. You know?
There's only 2 classmates in her class too.
Yeah.
And it's the same 2 classmates who are gossiping about her later. And then this is odd because she like rolls her eyes and then you get those dappled ink spots and she's still walking in the grass. So I assume it's got the same color palette.
It's got the same color palette and she was walking in the grass when she was walking away from class.
Yeah, I assumed it was the same location, but then we pan up and you reveal that it's Artemis's house.
But all of the sidewalks and all of the pavement have disappeared.
Yeah.
And before it was in the suburbs.
And this location has historically been pink tinged.
Yeah, it's been pink tinged and it's also had freaking sidewalk and driveways.
Yeah.
Like, why would she be walking in the grass in heels? Why would she walk all the way home, first off, when she could fly? And second of all, why would she be walking in the grass in heels when Artemis's house has a sidewalk and, like, a driveway?
Yeah, and so this is confusing because dead center in the panel is Persephone, and then off to the left you see Apollo's car, and she sighs because Apollo is there. But you think she's sighing, like I thought she was sighing because these people followed her all the way home and they were still gossiping about her.
I know!
You know? And she's like, stop, and because that stop is perfect for panels of her turning around and saying, you know what? Stop talking about me. That's what I think of when I see that panel.
But the other thing is, why did she, like, asterisk stop? Why couldn't she just show the feet being still and then, like, have little lines around them to indicate that she'd come to a stop?
I don't know. I can't tell you. Like,
and then the reason she sighs, but it's unclear, is because Apollo's car is so small and it looks like it's parked in the grass. And it's also not a bright enough color. Yeah. Like, it's just a very watered-down yellow.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, this should have been redrawn so that Persephone was much smaller and Apollo's car is much bigger. Yeah. So it's the focus of the frame. And then Persephone sighs. And then the other thing is when Persephone sighs, it's, like, from the wrong angle. And it's the totally wrong colors. Like, it's way too bright for this scene.
Yeah, it's, like, a really bright blue and a bright pink. And so then we cut to the interior of the house. She takes off her shoes as to not make any sound as she tiptoes past Hermes, Artemis, and Apollo. They're laughing at a video, and Hermes says, Artemis, that video isn't funny, you're a real sicko for laughing. What is the video that they're watching?
Some sort of snuff film, I'm guessing.
And then Persephone sneaking in the background is the same as the previous panel, just shrunken down and then flipped.
And all the hallways are, like, empty.
Yeah, it's it's liminal space is what it is.
It looks like a procedural dungeon with, like, no detail whatsoever.
Yeah, a roguelike.
Right? Yeah, roguelike.
So she gets to her room. Her room looks very different.
It does look so different from when Thanatos broke in. Yeah, that was only a couple chapters ago.
Didn't know she had that many books. And so she's got a letter from her mom. Where did she get that letter from? Did they show her getting that letter in a previous chapter?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Because she didn't get the mail on her way in. It's not like Artemis said, hey, this arrived for you in the mail or anything like that. But her birthday, we know, was in a previous chapter.
Her birthday was in the previous chapter, but all I remember happening for her birthday is Hermes saying, it's kind of a special day.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's, like, no scenes at home that I remember. No scenes with Artemis that we skipped over. Like, the fact that it was her birthday was so random and came out of nowhere for one chapter.
Yeah.
Remember? Where she just, like, it's the same chapter. It's the same chapter where he goes to work early, and then she's in the swimming pool, and then it felt like Rachel was like, oh, what should happen next in this office comedy? Oh, okay, I'll just have it be her birthday.
Yeah.
And then, like, you cut to Hermes saying, like, it's kind of an important date in the next chapter, and Hades freaking out that he doesn't know that it's her birthday. And the only thing that I could think of that we got in the intervening chapter with those characters that involved her birthday was when Hermes was bragging to to Apollo about how great the present was.
Yeah.
But we never saw Artemis for the last 10 chapters.
No, and let me ask you this. Are there seasons in Olympus, or is it only in the mortal realm?
I have no idea. All I know is that it snows in the underworld, and it doesn't snow in the mortal realm. She's never seen snow before.
Okay. I mean, because he says it's the first day of spring.
Yeah.
So if he's talking about the mortal realm...
It must be the mortal one because Demeter says, like, I'm sorry, I'm very busy.
Okay, so we know what the timeline is. I mean, if it's the first day of spring, then it should be like...
But it doesn't matter because there's no seasons, there's no months, there's no days.
Yeah.
And, like, frequently it'll be a work day, but Hades will never go to work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even... And then he said it's already been 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
it's only been a week and, like, 2 days.
Trying to think about it will give you a headache.
I know.
So she opens up the birthday card, and she has money. And she goes, why don't you take your friends out for a nice dinner? If she gets money from her mom, why does she need to pawn the comb later? Because that looks like a lot of money,
It's
right?
$1,000.
It's $3,000 because she gets...
It's 3,000 drachma and she sells the coin for 2.
Yeah, she sells the coin for 2. So, I mean...
What did she spend her money on? Stickers and journals? Like, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know. And she goes, why don't you take your friends out for a nice dinner? I won't go home. And then laughter from the living room. And then she's having a tough time going to sleep. I feel like I'm losing it. For some reason, she goes to the window and says to nobody, his car is gone. He's not even here anymore. I mean... Is she having a tough time because of
I can't tell because there's no internal monologue. I can't tell. I legitimately have no idea what she's thinking. She just says, I feel like I'm losing it. Toss, turn. I feel like I'm losing it.
Is that because of kissing Hades or is it because of Apollo?
I have no idea. There's no insight into her mind. There's no insight into what bothers her at any point in time.
Yeah. And she goes, God, I'm so sick of this. So sick of what?
That looks Trace, by the way.
Yeah. So she sinks to the ground and then she pats her hands on the ground to summon Hades. And we were joking, like, what if Hades was in the middle of taking a monster dump and he just arrived?
She didn't even text him. She just, like, summoned him.
Yeah.
I would be so mad. I'd be like, why did you summon me? Like, what the heck?
Yeah, so he goes, you got it right, it takes a few seconds. And I thought this was a really creepy detail, but it's like attention to detail when usually we don't really get much attention to detail.
No, there's attention to detail only in the creepy ways. Like, attention to detail only when it's like, no, please don't... Please don't include that detail.
Yeah, so he's got Underworld Con 96, and if she's supposed to be like 19. In 2020, I guess, right? That implies that she was born in
2001.
2001. So a whole 5 years after Underworld Con 96. And I saw that, and I was like, of all the things to...
You didn't show her picking up her mail, but you made sure to include the detail that made him, like, already 40 before she was born.
Yeah, it's just odd. It's just an odd decision to make. And so she says, I thought that the ground would open up and he'd emerge in a plume of black smoke, which would have been more visually interesting from just seeing him suddenly there from the navel up. But,
it's too much effort.
Yeah, so then they banter a bit and he goes, are you okay? I haven't seen you since. And instantly his hand is on her neck.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they're kind of skirting around the issue of the kiss, right? And so then she says, this is probably not what you had in mind when you told me I could summon you for help.
And then she's suddenly really tall in that panel.
Yeah, like Hades is doing a half squat.
Where did her arms go?
He took them.
What the heck?
I guess she's like going like this or something.
But that's not what your arms do in the side when
No.
you're doing that. Like, my arms don't disappear. What the heck? Did she just want to draw her, like, as a sexy quadriplegic with no arms?
I don't know, but it's, like, annoying how she's constantly standing with incorrect
Yeah, exactly, that's
posture
what I'm
like
saying.
that.
Like, she drew her... The reason she drew her arms like that is because if you gave her anatomically correct arms, you wouldn't be able to see her boobs.
Oh, yeah.
That's why she drew her arms like that, by the way. Because if you were actually holding your arms like this, it would cover your chest.
Yeah.
So...
And so she says she doesn't feel very good and she can't sleep. And so... She goes, I know I made a big deal out of setting boundaries. I feel like an idiot. Could you please stay here with me just to sleep?
Why do you cut to her foot going tap, tap, tap?
Because she's, like, nervously tapping her foot. But
it doesn't add anything to the story. And this foot is really poorly drawn. It's not like it's, like, mid-tap. It's on the floor.
It looks like tears are falling.
I
into
know!
her toes. That's what's tapping.
And then the foot is just so... It looks like a Muppet foot. Like,
Yeah.
There's nothing happening here. There's no motion, there's no movement, it doesn't add anything to the story. And then the framing is really weird, because you include her entire lower leg instead of just the foot.
Yeah.
So, like, why would you... And, like, the fact that there's such a big space between the previous panel and the next panel, it takes up so much space that you have to focus on it, but it adds nothing. It's so weird.
Yeah. So she asks him to sleep, and she says, you don't have to, but I mean, what do you think would have happened if he said, nah, I'm gonna go home?
He should have said, nah, I'm gonna go home. And this is why she comes off as so manipulative, because she knew he wasn't gonna pass up the chance. And this is just after they had their boundaries conversation. They had that conversation on Friday. And this is, like, Wednesday.
Yeah.
The second Minty broke up with him. No, that wasn't even on Friday. That was on, like, what, Sunday? No, on Sunday she was with Aries.
Flirting with Aries, right?
This is the room of requirement. It was on Monday because she went to school, and then she went to visit him Underworld Corp.
Yeah.
It must have been Monday.
Yeah.
Because Friday was the slap.
Right.
Monday was when she went to the Underworld to, like, complain, and Aries was there. But wait, if Aries was there and that was the first time he showed up, then she wasn't in Aries. She was in Aries' kitchen later on Monday.
That was the same day when Apollo comes to her house?
Oh my god, I'm so confused already.
No, we already talked about this.
No, we didn't, because we said...
No, it's Sunday. It's Sunday when she's at Aries' house, and then it's Tuesday when Hades and Minty break up, so this is Wednesday.
No, I know, but I'm saying, when did the Room of Requirement happen?
That happened on,
Because it was a work day.
It was... No, Hecate says what day that is. She goes, it's like the third Tuesday of the month or something, or the third Monday of the month.
It must have been Monday.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Sunday?
No.
Sunday we just skipped over.
Yeah.
It was Monday?
Yes.
Okay. So we got the timeline wrong in the previous episode.
I don't know. I guess so.
I think Sunday we just cut to Hades at Sunday brunch, and Monday she went to his office and then came home and Apollo was making the crepes.
No, that couldn't have been That couldn't have been Monday.
No, because they go to the hospital.
Yeah.
When did they go to the hospital?
They go to the hospital after Apollo makes... No, before Apollo makes the crepes. No. We talk about Apollo making the crepes in episode 3. And in episode 3, it's like prior to that. Because remember... No. Oh my gosh. No. Wait. No. She goes to Hera's house. He drives her home. Apollo's there. Apollo disappears. Apollo comes back to make the crepes, and they have that big discussion, and she goes to... Because right after she goes to Eros' house and has that thing with Ares, you cut to Hades breaking up with Minty.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, we know that's
No, because Apollo attacks her, like, twice, in like, with one day between,
Yeah.
and we know he came to her house on Friday, but she was with Hades at that time.
Yeah.
Saturday was the pregnancy clinic, and Apollo's car was there, but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then Sunday was just Sunday brunch. I don't think we ever saw Sunday from her perspective.
No.
And then Monday she goes to class and everyone's ignoring her and it's like her study group thing. And then Aries shows up for the first time. And then after that, she goes to see Hades and then they go to the hospital. No, they do the Room of Requirement and then they go to the hospital. And then after they go to the hospital, then Apollo is in her kitchen making crepes? Why would he be doing that on a Monday afternoon?
Because when he comes back after the mortal realm, he sees on his phone that Apollo says, I'm going to be spending some time with this cutie at like 11 a.m.
Yeah, but we already said that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I'm going to have to watch all the videos again.
I think it's after the hospital scene. No, because after the hospital scene...
She goes all crazy at the hospital scene.
No, after the hospital scene, they go back to her house, and Hestia's there.
Yeah.
And there's the Goddesses of Eternal Maidenhood thingy. And then Hades is like, why won't this day just end already? And then at the very end, Ares is like beating the crap out of Zeus.
Yeah.
And then they go to the mortal realm.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Tuesday, must be when Apollo's making crepes. And then Eros saves her, and then she goes to Ares. And then cooks.
Yeah, because Eros says just skip class today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was Tuesday.
Okay.
All
right.
So that was yesterday. She was flirting with Ares yesterday.
Yeah, so she was flirting with Ares Oh my god. That took like 10 minutes to iron out. So then she jumps on him after he says, yeah, sure. And he says, I'm sorry to hear that you're not doing well. And it's just so funny, the panel where she jumps on him, those blue flowers coming from her head are like the same color as his skin, so it just looks like he got shot in the head. There's like a blood spray coming from his forehead. That's macabre, but I don't think the Hades fans are watching this video, so I can say it.
In the next panel, one of her feet is giant and the other one's tiny.
Yeah. So then he puts her in bed
like a freaking baby.
Yeah, like she's a baby.
She's the same size as a baby in that panel. Like her torso is the same size as a baby's torso, which is just disturbing.
And then, puts the blanket on her and he goes, let me know if you want me to leave, okay? And he gets in.
There's no pillows.
And then Hades, creepy Hades, he waits until they're in the bed together, and her side of the bed is up against the bookshelf, so she can't leave.
There's no escape.
Yeah, she has to go through him. And he goes, can we talk about the kiss? With this really creepy expression.
Creepy face.
And she looks scared.
And he's got his hand on her head.
Yeah, he could...
Squash her like a melon.
I could squash you like a bug right now.
I could squash you like a bug right now.
He's the blue goblin. And then he goes, did you not like it? She goes, the kiss? Yeah.
His hand goes from really giant to tiny in that next panel.
I loved the kiss, and her face is all, like, she looks like a moon face.
Yeah.
And then just ... Then why did you leave? What happened?
Why is everything so stilted? Why can't characters say more than one sentence per panel?
No, but I mean, like, I guess I really enjoyed the kiss, and I got excited. I mean, this is, like, so many panels dedicated to something that you could just say, like, you know, he could have just been, like, next to her, and he could have been like, hey, so, you know, about that kiss. And then he's like, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. And she goes, no, it's fine. And he goes, I mean, too fast or something? Is that why you left? And she goes, oh, no. I mean, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. But, you know, I just got a little excited.
I got a little carried away.
Yeah, 3 panels.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 panels. And no mention of, like, he could have broken the ice, like, so I found on Oracle that goddesses turn into butterflies when they're feeling a little...
No, because there was no answer for that. Apparently, there was no answer for that because he, like, looked it up and he didn't see anything.
Yeah, so then he goes, oh, after she said she got excited. And then...
I guess I felt scared of those feelings I was having. Which is just like... So Apollo had nothing to do with it?
No.
People are like, oh yeah, it was because of Apollo, There's no clarification in the text. There's no indication whatsoever that she was thinking of Apollo. Neither did she get a flashback to Apollo, nor did she think of Apollo, nor did she even say to Hades that it was Apollo. And you know what? I couldn't even tell you whether or not it was Apollo, because I had never seen Persephone's head. So it's not like she's lying to Hades here and saying, like, I guess I was getting scared of the feelings that I had, and then you have, like, a parentheses, like, thought from Persephone's perspective where she's saying, I can't tell him about what happened to Apollo.
Yeah.
There's no indication that it was Apollo. We have no indication that it was Apollo, so for the people who think that it was Apollo, like, you can think that, but that's, like, headcanon. That's not in the text.
No, and, yeah, so...
We haven't mentioned the thing with Apollo since the chapter where he came in and was making crepes.
Crap.
Crap. And in that chapter, she just seemed angry at him. She wasn't acting like he had freaking assaulted her.
No.
She was just like, oh, I don't like you. Get out of here. And she even went into a room alone. She took him to her bedroom again.
Yeah.
She's like, come to my bedroom.
Dangerous.
Where it happened.
Yeah, no, I mean...
It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, so she apologizes for leaving and sorry for being weird, and this is another one of those conversations where it's just, like, so Tumblr.
It's like there's so much time dedicated, like, to this conversation. It takes up an entire chapter, and it's like this could have been summed up in, like, 10 panels.
Yeah. And
it's another conversation that's just very circuitous, and it doesn't feel like it was written beforehand. Meanwhile, the classmates bullying her, which is supposed to be, like, a real impact on her psyche and her character, and it's supposed to make you, like, it's supposed to be a reason that she ran away, I guess, because they say she had no friends and no one knows what she's studying, she was all alone, blah, blah, blah. That got 1 panel.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this conversation that's dragging on forever got, like, 50 panels.
Yeah, and it's more of the same. He goes, you're not that weird, and then he creates a moth, and then she touches the moth. But I guess he's trying to be like, I turn into moths too when I get excited.
No, but he doesn't turn into a moth.
No.
And that panel where he's saying, see, that could have been 1 panel where he says, you're not that weird, see? That could have been, you could have put those 2 bubbles in the same panel.
Yeah. And
you would have significantly less filler. Like, it's ridiculous.
But what's with the moth and the butterfly imagery? Like... And she says, I'm really glad you're here, and that's the end of the chapter. So now we're on to episode 113. And it's been an hour, and we've only talked about 2 episodes again.
Yeah.
So, this episode, this one has a trigger warning because Apollo shows up. And she's got a red line to indicate when to stop reading. And this is just, it's odd because, I mean, the exchange with Apollo comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that entire sequence is just really weird.
Yeah, so, I mean, she wakes up and Hades is still there and she goes, I could get into a lot of trouble for having him here, but it's worth it. So then there's some light bantering. Her face gets really dark in one panel, like ominous for some reason.
And then her face looks really weird in the next panel. Her nostril's right under her eye. So strange.
Odd. And so he says, I should head home to feed the dogs. They outnumber me.
No, they don't, because you never picked them up from the daycare.
Yeah. And so then he asks her to come with for some breakfast, and she's already ready to go. But
this is supposed to be Thursday.
Yeah.
So why did he sleep in if he has to go to work?
Well, I mean, why is her room dark all of a sudden like the underworld?
Oh
too?
yeah, it's like blue instead
Yeah.
of like pink.
Yeah, it looks like the underworld.
Her bedroom is supposed to be pink. Why? And it's Olympus and it's morning. So why is it blue? Did they just color the entire background the same color as the bed?
I mean, once they get, it would have been really interesting if it was pink, and then when you cut back to his place, it's blue, and it's a huge like contrast, right? But instead, you just get this weird gradient where they realize, oh shit, you know,
Yeah.
we made her room blue. It's supposed to be pink, you know.
Oh god.
Yeah, let's quickly do some pink. And so then he's like in the void going,
Yeah, that feels so weird.
Give me your hand.
Everyone's in the void. It's just a bunch of colors behind them. Like,
Yeah.
I'm having a seizure and I just see colors.
So now it's like pink again, full pink as they're standing, and then they boing to the underworld, and it's blue again. But
But if they can teleport, then why did she walk home from class? If she can teleport, then why did she sneak past Apollo? Or is it something only Hades can do?
oh man, and not only that, Hades can also change.
Yeah, he can also change his clothes.
So he wore that Underworld Con 96
On purpose.
as a power play.
On purpose.
So all of 3 of his dogs, the rest of them, we don't know where they are.
No.
Um,
He got rid of the rest.
and you've got the dog eyeballing the baguette, and they're making an omelet with chives. And then he takes the baguette, and then this eerie panel of them looking down at the dog.
Yeah, it's so creepy. Especially because the background's just a total flat, single color void.
And they have shineless eyes.
Yeah, and the anatomy is really weird too.
The facial expressions are odd, and so then you've got this strange panel of the dogs eating the baguette, and it's very cartoonish.
And there's no body. There's no body, there's no floor, there's no wall.
And the one in the middle-
there's no cabinet.
The one in the middle didn't get anything.
I know.
That's sad. So then they start laughing at the dog. Hades looks like he's in pain when he's laughing. And then we just have this wordless montage, because I guess the conversation isn't important. He's not asking
because they don't have conversations.
No.
That aren't about insomnia or like turning into butterflies.
Like, hey, by the way, why was Apollo at your house? Hey,
maybe
by the way.
maybe that's why they can't say more than one sentence per panel, because if you had to do more than one sentence per panel, it'd be very apparent that she doesn't know what to write when she writes a conversation between them, because it would only be 3 panels. It'd be like, how'd you feel about the kiss? Oh, I just got a little carried away. Oh, okay, cool. Sorry for being weird. You're not weird. See? That's 4 panels! That's 4 panels instead of 50! And it's like, if you combine it all together, it's like, they really have nothing in common.
Like, what are they
This
even
is
talking
really
about?
boring!
In this panel where they're sitting at the table and she's got a fork like this and he's holding a knife. He eats his omelet with a knife.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? Why are you holding a knife, silly? You eat omelet with a fork. Oh, maybe you do, but I don't. And then he puts the coat on her. She looks like his daughter, honest to God, in that panel. She looks like his daughter. She gives him a hug, and then she slinks off. And then he's leaving, and then there's a knock, and he turns into Slender Man for a second there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then it ends up being Hermes. But do you think Hermes saw Persephone on his way in? Because it was only like a couple seconds, right?
Yeah, and she didn't fly away.
Yeah, because later he says he the last time he saw her was on her birthday when she's missing, and that's not true. If he saw her at this,
Maybe Hermes was looking at his phone when he flew over here.
but he's not holding his phone in that panel.
Why is he wearing a shirt with Persephone on it?
Is that Persephone?
It looks like it.
I don't think it is.
Is it not?
It could be.
It looks like Persephone. It
Well,
looks
that
like
would
that's
be-
how Persephone is drawn in like goofy cartoon style.
Yeah, and so then he's there to deliver the tape from the Fates. I guess she did teleport because she's like landing on the ground in this next panel.
No, that's just her flying.
Okay, so she flew. So I guess
But it's like so unclear. It's like, how come I don't know why she doesn't teleport? Is it just because only Hades can teleport? Then why don't you tell me that? Why don't I know which gods can teleport and which can't? Like, can Persephone teleport? It's a legitimate question.
it would have been really useful.
It would have been really useful, but we only see her teleport with Hades this one time, and I don't really see Hades teleport any other time, do you? That one time when they're going to the room of requirement and to the hospital, they're flying.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just teleport them then? Why didn't they just teleport to the hospital if you could teleport all along? Like, it doesn't make sense!
He could have just teleported to Tower 4, but he flew to Tower 4.
Exactly! It doesn't make any sense! Why would you introduce teleporting for this one panel and then never have it ever again? It's so weird.
Maybe it takes a lot of energy. Maybe he.
But there's no explanation. That's you like pulling stuff out of your butt to excuse it.
Maybe when he goes back to the table, he eats the entire baguette, just like like that.
But like you didn't show it,
No.
so I don't know. Like instead of having them silent, she could be like, "So that teleport trick, that was pretty neat. How come we don't use that more often? Like, why do you even have a car, dude?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you have a car?
Why do you have a car if you can just teleport everywhere?
Yeah, and other people too. You could teleport into like
Yeah.
parties and stuff.
Yeah,
and we know Zeus and Poseidon can teleport.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's odd. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you show that if you weren't gonna
Do anything with it,
yeah,
or
do
explain
anything
it.
with that?
It's just weird.
Yeah. Okay, so this part is odd because we cut to Persephone at what appears to be like some sort of shopping center.
This is so weird.
Only from context.
This is so weird. I have no idea where she is. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what those squares are in the background. Are they garages? Are they shop fronts? What is the ground? It's so blurry. She looks like a giant compared to these shop fronts, if they are shop fronts. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It's just like an empty void with a bunch of squares around and like buildings, presumably, but she looks way too big in comparison. And then you cut to her next to one of these buildings, but again, like she's way too tall for this building. And then she's looking in, and there's nothing in the background. Like, they show you the background because she's like in the 3/4 view. Like, this actually has decent composition. And there's nothing there. It's a void.
It's like a gray fog.
And so first of all, I don't know where she is. Second of all, she flew here on purpose, but then when she walks past the shop front, it looks like she's just like on a whim deciding to go in. And then the next panel, instead of showing the inside of the shop, it's just a flat ground with a bunch of handkerchiefs on it.
Like, could you imagine if that, for this part of the video, I should re-render this scene in Blender and just show the handkerchiefs on the ground in like a void and play like eerie like.
Cause there's nothing here. It's not. There's no products here. There's no other products in this scene, and there's not even other handkerchiefs here.
No, there's
it's
no
just
cash
these.
register.
It's just these 8 handkerchiefs. For all we know, it could be like the Death Note. She just rounds the corner and there's just 8 handkerchiefs on the ground. Like, where did these handkerchiefs come from? And then she just picks up one of the handkerchiefs, and then the next panel is her holding an envelope that says sold on it, because if it didn't say sold on it, we wouldn't know that she bought the handkerchief, because she doesn't make any, like, it's not like you show her, like, talking to a cashier and giving them money and then taking the handkerchief in exchange. That would have been a more effective visual than her holding this thing that says sold on it.
Do you think she spent the 3,000 drachma on that handkerchief?
Oh my god! I think you're right!
Because she doesn't have money.
No! Oh no! Oh my god!
Why doesn't she just pawn that later? She never actually gives it to him.
It's probably overpriced.
Oh, 3,000 drachma for a handkerchief.
Talk about characters that she's supposed to be thrifty. She's supposed to be eco-conscious. Crafty. Why didn't she just knit her own, like, handkerchief for him? Or take a plain, like, she looks at the handkerchief and she goes, And then you cut to her at night, painstakingly over several nights, embroidering a small, plain handkerchief for him with the little dogs all over it. And it'll be a little project that she's been working on. And then maybe she drops it at the pawn shop, and then Hades picks it up and he's like, she was working on this for me? Now I feel even worse, you know? Yeah. Like, I mean, something like that would have had a lot of heart, and it would have also shown her character. Like, okay, to go back to Peach Girl, at one point, the main character is knitting a phone case for her boyfriend, and then the phone case, like, represents a lot when it comes to, like, she ends up having to, like, search for him when he goes missing.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, this phone case, he never would have left it because it was one of his most treasured possessions.
Yeah.
Because I knit it for him, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's just like the comb.
What do you mean?
The comb later, you know? The owner of this comb wouldn't have given you the comb unless she really had to.
Well, also, the guy, the boyfriend,
yeah,
he ends up almost drowning because it gets lost in the ocean too.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so he like swims out to go get the phone case, and then like it's a big thing. Like, there's a lot of drama. So I'm saying like you could have done something like that to amp up the drama and make her character seem like a nicer person who put effort into making something for Hades because she's not rich. So why would you like if this guy is a billionaire, if it's Jeff Bezos? Why would you buy him something that anyone could get him or that he could buy for himself? Why wouldn't you make him something that's one of a kind that he can't buy?
Yeah, like the baklava.
Exactly. That's the stuff that people who are really rich appreciate. Yeah. The stuff that they can't buy.
Yeah, and so 3,000 drachma for a lousy handkerchief? Are you kidding me?
I mean, like, that's so stupid. She's so dumb.
Yeah.
She's so dumb.
So while she's exiting the shop, she gets called over by Daphne, who's there.
It's not shop, it's, like, void space.
Yeah, pardon me. While she's exiting the void, she gets called to by Daphne, and Daphne is there. I'm assuming this is, like, some sort of shopping center.
But you're assuming, because there's nobody there. There's no NPCs, there's no shop signs, there's no assets in the shop showing products. There's no cashiers. It's like some sort of Chinese ghost town where it's all like, you know, cashierless shops and like there's no products. You walk in the store, there's no furniture, there's no products. There's just 8 handkerchiefs in the middle of the store and like a dust bunny blows by. Like who did she pay for that handkerchief?
Yeah, those Chinese ghost towns, they have storefronts that have like signs and everything. So from the exterior, they look like there's stuff in there, but then you go inside and it's like unrendered space.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't get enough people to move into those neighborhoods. So there's nothing there. And so then she and Daphne talk about catching up, and then there's a content warning.
Well, Daphne's supposed to be her friend, and when she says like, oh, I feel so alone, blah, 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 if she and Daphne are friends, why didn't she ever call Daphne when she arrived in the mortal realm?
She never added her on Facebook. She never said, oh, I now that I have a phone, I can call my friends, you know?
Or she never, like, on Facebook, she never saw it, or Daphne's profile and went like, oh man, I wish I could be like Daphne. She's so confident and self-assured, you know?
That would have been a much better
That would have been a much better introduction to Daphne than the stupid pomegranate zero ad.
Yeah. So then they talk
I just get the feeling that Persephone is racist. So she calls Daphne her friend, but she would never really be friends with a nymph.
Oh yeah, she does say something to support that racism.
Yeah.
Like in a couple panels, actually. And so then they talk about having to catch up, and then we get the content warning line, and then Apollo literally comes in from nowhere.
Yeah, he literally no-clips in.
Yeah. He just comes in from stage left.
He, you know, shows up.
Yeah, and he says, there you are, our table is ready. And then behind him, I guess you could see a table.
That's the only table in the entire shopping complex.
There's nobody there in that
restaurant. There's nobody there. That's what I'm saying. There's nobody in these backgrounds.
There's not even a sign.
There's not even a sign. It's really weird. It's really, really weird. I would hightail it out of there. It looks haunted.
Yeah, and so he goes, oh, Persephone. And Daphne starts making strange faces, and she says, oh. And Apollo, can I talk to you for a second? And Daphne looks really uncomfortable.
Yeah, why does Daphne look so uncomfortable?
I don't know. And she goes, sorry, Daphne. And Daphne says, it's cool. I'm going to go sit down. Let's catch up soon, okay? So then Persephone again leads Apollo into a dark alleyway.
She's so dumb, dude. She has no self-preservation instinct at all.
No. And after their last interaction with the liar...
The fact that Eros literally had to shoot him 10 times like a friggin' elephant with a friggin' tranquilizer to get him down? I mean, come on.
Even that didn't work.
That didn't work. He had to drag her out of there.
Yeah.
And Apollo was like, I'll pick you up soon for our date.
Exactly.
But now he's dating Daphne. What's going on?
So rightfully, Persephone goes, what do you think you're doing?
I thought you wanted to date me.
He goes, me? I'm on a date. And then we get the true Persephone. You're dating a flower nymph?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Oh, jeez. And she starts to get those growths in her head.
Those, like, dark vines.
Yeah.
Red vines.
And he says, you told me to make someone else my Olympian. That's what I'm doing. And she says, stop it. Leave her alone. Whatever. You had your chance, and now you're jealous. Bye. I'm going to tell her what you did to me. And Artemis, I'll tell her too. You've had so many opportunities to tell Artemis.
You were going to tell Artemis in, like, episode 59. You chickened out.
No, after Apollo saw, like, when he saw her take the lyre, he probably looked at the lyre, and then he looked at her, and he's like, okay, clearly I'm dealing with somebody who is not...
Who's never going to do anything against me.
Yeah.
She couldn't even summon up the strength to cut all the strings. She just cut one.
So he saw that, he was like, okay, she's like a 7-year-old.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
You know, like, she's got, like...
I've got this one in the bag.
Exactly. She couldn't friggin', argue her way out of a wet paper sack. And she goes, and Artemis, I'll tell her too. And he goes, listen, I don't know what you've convinced yourself of, but what makes you think they'll believe you? I guess we'll find out. And his eyes go all yellow, and he says, if you breathe a word, all of the 3 kingdoms will see these photos. But I mean, Apollo says what we had was special, and he doesn't think what he did was assault.
He thought that it was like a consensual encounter.
Yeah.
Like, his character makes no sense. Because in this scene, he's acting like, yeah, so what? Like when I think this is like in the first or second episode when we were talking about it, or the first or second video when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
When I said, like, there's guys who act like if they assault you, it doesn't matter because you had it coming because you asked for it.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, sluts get what they deserve or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's guys who are, like, in denial and go, like, oh, we were both drunk, or, like, oh, you just regret it.
Yeah.
I didn't actually assault you. You know, they don't think of themselves as rapists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, Apollo vacillates between the two all the time, and it makes no sense. So, like, if you wanted to have him chase after Persephone and, like, want her to be his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, then have them actually date. Have them go on a few dates, and then he pushes her before she's ready.
Yeah.
You know? And then that would be, like, date rape. And then he's like, oh, I'm gonna pick you up for our next date. She's like, I don't know how to tell him that I don't want to date him anymore. After what he did to me,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to date him anymore. But she doesn't know how to assert that boundary, you know? Like, that would have been so much better, because that does happen. Like, you don't have to not date a guy. Or just because you date a guy doesn't mean that he has the right to, like, assault you.
No.
And then that would be like, oh, I thought you were, like, perfect for my wife material the second I first saw you. And you could even have it so that the dates go really well. She really likes him, but he's too pushy. You know, that would have been one tack, and then have him be obsessed with her, because they did go on a few dates. He does know her. He thinks she's perfect wife material, and maybe he takes her out one time, and he's one of those guys who, like, cares a lot about what other guys think of him. Maybe he takes her out one time, and then all the guys' eyes are on Persephone, because we all know that every man in this universe is, like, obsessed with her.
Yeah.
So then he's like, oh yeah, with this babe on my arm, I feel like I'm king of the world, you know? And then he, like, pushes too far, and then he becomes obsessed with her, because he's like, with you by my side, I'd be unstoppable.
Yeah.
But this is like, yeah, so what? You had it coming, blah, blah. They've never even talked before. They've never even gone on a date. So he just comes off as, like, a callous friggin' serial rapist.
Yeah.
And, like, so why is he still, like, right after this, right after he sends her the pictures and says, no one's gonna believe you, he asks Hera to marry her.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
And why is he on a date with Daphne?
Exactly. He's, like, got multiple personality disorder or something.
Yeah. And so
There's good Apollo and bad Apollo. You don't want to see when the other guy comes out. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so he uses the pictures as, like, leverage, as, like, blackmail, right? He sends them to her, and he goes, all the three kingdoms will see these photos, and she's having an emotional reaction here, but her vines don't whip out and grab the phone or, like, spear him against the wall or anything.
And
like
again,
that.
this is only important because of the act of wrath.
Yeah.
The act of wrath showed that she has a hair trigger temper, but it never activates in the context of these Apollo scenes.
No.
It's just totally contradictory.
Yeah.
Completely contradictory. Like, you have one or the other. Don't have both. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's just not consistent at all. And so then we get this extremely goofy looking panel of Apollo melting with, you know, the pictures thing. The line, everyone will see a minor goddess who got cold feet about her commitment to a life of celibacy. But, I mean, if Apollo wants to use her to boost his own image, why would he threaten her with that? Because it's like, oh, the reason we would make such a good pair together is because you're so beautiful and you've got, like, an untarnished image because nobody really knows who you are right now. But if you step out of line, then I'm going to blackmail you with these. And it's like, don't you realize the reason that you're trying to court her is because of her image? And then you're talking about wanting to destroy her image if she tells anybody about.
But his whole reason for wanting her to be his wife doesn't make any sense in this context.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything about her.
No.
I mean, like, that was actually accurate when she said that. Hades doesn't know anything about her either. But, like, when she said, you don't know anything about me, it's true. Like, if he'd spent time with her and he's like, she's really good at sucking up to people, she makes a good impression, she's the most beautiful girl in the room whenever I walk in with her on my arm, that'd be one thing. But his reasoning for wanting to marry her, like, it doesn't even matter if it contradicts what he's doing now, because he has no reason for wanting to marry her.
Yeah, that's true. And so she wipes her eyes, and then we don't really get any idea of what happens after that. He just kind of, I guess he goes back to his date. And then
in the void space.
Yeah, and she's just in the alleyway until she decides to leave. But then we cut back to Artemis's house. Artemis teleports. She can teleport too.
Exactly.
Teleports into the house, and she goes, I'm home, hello. And she sees this note from Persephone. Dear Artemis, my mother came to visit me today, so I decided to go home with her for a little break. See you in a week or so. Lots of love, Persephone. That was sudden, weird. So, you know what else is sudden and weird? This random shift to Artemis, who we haven't seen in, like,
40 episodes.
40 episodes. So then, just in time, a knock at the door. She opens the door, and it's Demeter. She goes, hello, Artemis. I'm here to see my daughter. And then she crunches up the notes, and that brings us to episode 114.
Oh, God. This stupid episode? No! No!
So are we officially recording now?
We've been recording for the past like 2 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, episode 114, which starts with please use sound.
I don't think I will. I don't want to.
I don't want to. Right, so this is the episode where Hades finally loads the VCR and watches the memory between him and Persephone meeting for the first time. And
it's a load of barnacles.
This is a load of barnacles.
There's like this kind of like attempt at a retro graphic.
Well, no, first there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's at least 5 panels with Hades just monkeying around with plugging the VCR into the TV, which we didn't need to see. We could have just started with him holding the VCR, you know, and then put like the title card could have been the VCR. Like that could have been like your, because one thing I don't like about the newer episodes is that the first panel is usually something really blasé instead of like an iconic image or something visually interesting. He could have held the VCR in his hands and that could have been your opening panel, and then, you know, put it into the VCR and then sit down and wait with anticipation as it loads on the screen. There's your 3-panel starter.
Yeah, what would have been really nice also is if he's bathed in the neon light glow.
Or the glow of a CRT.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
TV.
But everything is just so blue and nebulous. The first panel that we see is him like shaking in the corner.
Yeah.
He's got the shaky lights around him, he's shaking. Because that's not like rummage, you know, and like his arm moving.
No,
it's like...
It looks like he's vibrating in the corner.
Yeah, you know, so...
And then the TV has a glow, but none of the glow gets cast on him. Like, you could have had a really interesting thing, again, like him holding the VCR, putting it in, and then sitting down, and then he's bathed in the glow, or you could have him in profile, where he's bathed in the glow of the TV.
Yeah.
And then you see the video starting.
Yeah.
And instead, she saves her iconic panel for, like, halfway through the opening, where she has the Lore Olympus title card, with the 3D effect on it, but I don't know why, like, did the Fates call themselves Lore Olympus or something? Why is that on his TV?
It's supposed to be like a...
It's a title drop.
It's a title drop,
but I don't, like, in the context of the universe, why would the Fates brand their video cassettes with Lore Olympus?
Maybe it's really meta, and when they record memories like that on VCR, it records Lore Olympus on that as, like, this is a memory in Lore Olympus. It would be like if we recorded a memory, like let's say in real life there was a similar mechanic, and you record it, and it would be like the world according to Pyrrhic and Victoria or something, or Pyrrhic and Victoria reads it. And it's like when you record the memory, that's just automatically how it goes, because there's no explanation for how this technology even works.
No,
right?
The other thing I was going to say is that Olympus is set in the modern day. They have the Pomegranate X series freaking smartphone.
I know.
So why are they using VCRs to record the memory?
Yeah, and why even have it be VCR? Why not make it like film reel that you have to crank like this?
Yeah, if you want
to
to
go all the way.
Yeah, like, no, it's because Vaporwave was really popular in like the mid 2010s, and she just went like, oh, a popular trend that I enjoy, let me just put that in my comic.
Yeah.
But like in the universe, there's no reason for why it needs to be on VCR, and there's no real reason why it would be branded Lore Olympus except like aesthetic.
No.
But like the aesthetic like doesn't apply to the rest of the comic. Like it's not like the rest of the comic is set in the 90s.
No.
It's just this one thing. And even then, like, it's not like the aesthetic is cool. She does nothing with it, really. It's so underutilized.
No, and
it's just, it just feels like, you know, a thought that she had while she was sitting on the toilet or something.
Yeah.
And, like, it never went further than that. Like, it was a really shallow application of this thought. It's like, let me inject some Vaporwave into my comic and then just make all of the memories on VCR. But it's like, that doesn't, like, why?
Yeah, it's when she was in her Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z phase, because obviously she watched a little Dragon Ball Z, a little Sailor Moon. We mentioned that in the previous video, where you're seeing all these anime influences all of a sudden. And the Vaporwave anime aesthetic has a lot of crossover appeal, and so I think she just put that in there as like an afterthought, because even in the rest of the panels, you have the play with the scroll on the screen, and that only lasts for 2 panels, then it goes back to normal.
No, there's no, you know, you can add like a texture onto your panels to give it like the lines that are in the CRT TV. You know, it's just such a missed opportunity. Like, it's like, it'd be one thing if she did it for the aesthetic and the aesthetic was really nice, and I wouldn't be saying anything. But the aesthetic is so like poorly done and such an afterthought, and she couldn't even commit more than like a panel. So it's like, why even do it at all?
Yeah.
If you didn't care that much about the aesthetic to make it last more than a panel, then why even do it?
Yeah.
It just opens up so many plot holes.
It's distracting. It's like, what's going on here? So then we see the memory, and it's like it starts with Persephone, and she's watching in the bushes as Hecate approaches Demeter to tell her that Hades is there. And so then, after Demeter reacts to that...
I have a quick question. Whose memory even is it?
It's supposed to be... That's the thing. It's supposed to be, like, It's obviously recorded from, like, third person.
Yeah, it's recorded like it's recorded just like it's any other part of the comic. Like,
Yeah.
it's just omniscient. Third person omniscient. It's not from anyone's POV. So how is it a memory?
It's just, it falls apart. It's not like, because if it was from her point of view, or his point of view, then you wouldn't have all the amazing shots that we see later, right? But it's
That's what I'm saying, like, what?
It's just
The more you think about it, the more you're just like, what is going on here?
Maybe some voyeuristic creep was watching.
Yeah, whose memory is this?
Breathing in the bushes, like, Persephone, like, I'm watching her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously... And that creep in the bushes, Rachel. Like, you know? Like, that's, yeah.
What's up with her face in this panel? What is wrong with her face in this panel?
She's like,
like, it's so blank and creepy.
Hades is here.
But, like, her mouth looks like a burger.
Yeah.
What is...
Why
What?
is she like...
Why is she like
afraid,
this?
Is she afraid of Demeter or something? I mean, like... She says later she's not afraid of Zeus.
Yeah, she says later that she's not afraid of Zeus, so who cares? But why is she afraid of Demeter?
I mean, Demeter versus Zeus, we know who wins. Zeus wins. If she's
Yeah.
not afraid of Zeus, why should she be afraid of Demeter?
I guess because Demeter is an evil feminazi.
She's gonna start yelling at me
Right.
like a heart.
Like Hillary Clinton!
I hate it. So Hecate approaches Demeter, and she... creepy 1,000-yard stare.
That panel is so weird.
And it's such an odd panel to say Hades is here. I
No,
mean,
but like, where's her arm too? Like, the way that this panel is drawn, her arm should be in front of her body, but it's like tucked behind her
it's
body.
Like this.
It's so weird. Everything about this panel is so weird.
She doesn't even facially look like herself.
She doesn't look like Hecate, but what is she even pointing at?
Hades.
Oh.
He's above you right
No,
now.
but her hand is right next to Demeter's butt in the previous panel, so she pointed at Demeter's butt? What is going on here?
I have no idea what she's pointing to. And so Demeter goes, I thought that's funny. I thought you just said Hades is here. And she goes, yeah, he is. And then you have this odd panel of Demeter.
It's in the void, just doing the chicken dance.
Yeah. And then Persephone quickly goes and runs off to go check out Hades. You have that weird panel where you see her butt underneath her
And
dress.
all of the trees are flipped. Like you said, it's one pair of trees. And then it looks like a pair of corn dogs.
No, forget the trees. It's the entire background. It's flipped.
Oh,
and
you're right.
Duplicated.
Oh my
To
gosh.
extend it out.
The whole background is like that.
I mean, the ground, the background,
the stars.
the stars.
That's crazy. What the heck?
It's very
What?
fever dream.
Oh my god!
Where am I?
What? Dream is collapsing. What is going on here?
She's in the mirrorverse.
What the heck?
So it's like they just drew one thing and then they went up.
Why?
Because that makes it easier. Yeah, so then she gets to this room where Hades is asleep, covered in a bunch of pillows and fabric and stuff, and she peeks through the window and then daintily makes her way across the threshold, and again, we've got like 3 panels dedicated to what could just be like 2, and then she turns into a butterfly.
But why does she turn into a butterfly? Why doesn't she just breathe over his body like a creep anyway?
Yeah, because like essentially what she wants to do in this scene is ask him if it's possible for mortals who've been sent to the underworld to come back to the
Yeah, so
realm.
wouldn't it make more sense to ask him as a person instead of a butterfly? Why does she turn into a butterfly?
It's so that when he startles her, she can fall on him later.
You know, I would never write a scene like this because I never approach my writing like this. I never go like, oh, I want her to writhe her naked body on his steak-like chest.
His blue steak
with a weird cancerous tumor on his pec. You know, I never approach my writing in that way. So I would never have the character randomly turn into a butterfly just so that, like, she doesn't write the scene with the goal of, like, in this scene, Persephone learns that mortals cannot be taken out of the underworld, you know? That's not the goal for the scene. The goal for the scene is in this scene, I want Persephone's naked body to land on top of Hades, you know? That's the goal of the scene. That's what we're building towards.
Yeah.
Nothing story-wise, nothing plot-wise, just like the most prurient, lowest common denominator angle.
Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
That, like, this scene is constructed like those anime where, like, the main guy is, like, not interested in any of the women that he lives with, but then somehow, oops,
Yeah.
you know, like, he trips and falls, and then something perverted happens.
Yeah.
The most important discovery he'll make is that 6 crazy women living under the same roof all have the hots for him.
She says she's just a butterfly, and he says you're awfully chatty for a butterfly, but I mean, if she wanted to ask him about the mortals thing,
Then why'd she turn into a butterfly?
yeah, I mean, if he's like, dude, why is that freaking butterfly asking
Exactly.
me about the mortals?
Exactly.
Like,
If she wanted to just be a butterfly, then why'd she come here? Ostensibly, if she walked into his room to ask him that question, then why did she turn into a butterfly?
why didn't she just turn into a butterfly and fly into his room instead of coming through the window and then squatting? And
Because
then turning
Rachel's
into-
writing it as she's drawing it. She's like, what should happen next? I know, to get to the naked on top of his chest scene, I'm gonna have her turn into a butterfly. Because it doesn't make sense, right? If she wanted to get a closer look at him, because she's never seen a man before, but even that doesn't make sense because she's already met Ares, and she's already met Hermes, presumably. Because if not, then she's underage in this scene. So, she's already met Ares and Hermes, so it's not like she's never seen a dude before.
No, this is shortly after the Act of Wrath, which happened late last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's 18.
So that's what I'm saying. She's already met Ares and Hermes. So why does she want to get a closer look at?
Because she's like, "Are you really the king of the underworld?" And I thought you'd be scarier. And since you are really the king of the underworld, let me ask you this question:
Why does she talk so much? If she just wanted to get a closer look at him as a butterfly, like surreptitiously, why did she open her mouth and talk? You know what? You know who talks a lot without regard for the situation and like without regard to hierarchy? You know who does that? Children do that.
Yes.
Children walk up to people and tug on their clothes and go like, "Are you really the god of the underworld?"
Yeah.
That's what kids do.
And she says, "You're not what I expected at all." And I mean, the wings keep changing. That was distracting for me. I said a couple of obscene things about these wings in some of these panels. And so she goes, "I thought you would be scary, right?" Very childlike again, like you said. And then he goes, "Scary, that sounds like a challenge." She's like, you want scary? Not really. I'll give you scary." Hades is abusing this poor butterfly by scaring the crap out of it.
They're very similar. When they can get away with bullying someone, they do.
Yeah. And then we have that esteemed panel where she is naked in the air, and then she lands on him, and they're both making SpongeBob faces in that one.
Yeah.
And she, like, her hand is, like, on his crotch, pretty much.
Yep.
She landed pretty much directly on his crotch.
Direct hit.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Hades can't have kids. Ever since the accident, things just don't work the same way they used to.
Her arms make no sense in this panel, by the way.
Oh no. Definitely not.
Wow.
I mean, if you were to sketch out the rest of that, I'm assuming, like, the way she would be drawn, like, her butt would be, like, way up there like that.
She's supposed to be horizontal in this panel. She's not supposed to be, like, you know, curled around the other side of his chest where it would actually make sense to see her body disappearing like that.
Yeah.
Like, where's her back?
Just
Yeah.
like that.
It's just, you know, doesn't make any anatomical sense.
And the next panel's strange.
I don't know what's going on in the next panel. Why are there two faces? You know what I think happened in this panel? I think they, like, forgot that, because it's the same panel, it's just they moved her head a little bit further back. It's a copy paste, and then they changed where her eyes were.
Yeah.
Do you think they forgot to delete the layer underneath?
But then what's with the color change, right?
She's got the weirdest, creepiest, like, glass-eyed stare in that
This
panel.
panel is cursed.
I know!
She's turning into, like, a monster from the thing.
She looks like she got possessed.
What is going on?
And then his eyes look really weird, too. He's, like, cross-eyed.
Yeah.
Looks like he's having a massive, like, you
No,
know.
it looks like they're both looking up at something. Like, their views are converging to, like, his speech bubble.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
Like, it would be one thing if they both look down, right? They look at each other, and then they both look down, like, uh-oh, you know?
Yeah.
But this is just odd.
I don't know what's going on in this panel. It's so weird. It's really strange.
Yeah, and then we cut to him saying, "I'm never drinking again," because he saw that eldritch horror
I know.
on the screen. He's like, "Ah!" So, I didn't mean to frighten you. And she backs off, and all the pillows and everything are gone. He says, "Forgive me, goddess, I am a foolish old drunk." All of those things are true. In the present as well.
Yeah, I know.
He says, "What's your name?"
Her face looks so vacant
Yeah.
and dead-eyed.
She says, "Don't look at me."
Her body looks so horrible in that picture. It looks like she just traced, like, an Instagram post from Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, her waist is tiny all of a sudden, and her hands are really, really tiny, and she's got no stretch marks anymore.
No, I mean, you know, Kim Kardashian has that weird, like, bolt-on aesthetic where, like, she's, like, super skinny because she gets her fat, like, strategically sucked out.
Yeah.
So in some places, she's, like, hard as a rock.
Yeah.
You know, like, her stomach and her waist has no extra fat on it at all. And then all of a sudden, like, a butt is just grafted onto it. It's really bizarre. Like, she's shaped like a doorstopper. And that's what Persephone looks like in this panel.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. Like, that back leg, oh.
Even in the context of, like, the composition of the panel, it seems like it was composed in a way to show, like, as much
Of
her
course.
body as possible.
Of course. The panel was composed, and, like, her boobs are in the center of the panel.
Yeah.
Like, make note of the fact that her boobs are in the center of the panel and the highlight are around her boobs and her butt. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, if she's saying "don't look at me," I mean, she's going like, she's like in a boxer stance.
I know.
It's like, I mean, you'd be like, ugh, you know, something like that, right? And so,
And then she puts her hands on his eyes again. And
I'm already in enough trouble as it is.
then we get more baby hands.
Yeah, tiny baby hands. And he goes, "What? But why? Who are you?" And she says, "I suppose you're right. This is silly." He's right about what? He didn't say this is silly. I suppose
No.
you're right about what? He said why? She's saying, "I suppose you're right." What's going on?
This is like written by algorithm at this point. Like nobody's saying anything that makes any sense, and then when they respond to each other, half the time you have to guess at what they're responding to.
And then she says, "I need to ask you something for a friend." But what I want to know is, what is that lump that her hand is on?
Oh no!
So then we get into the question about mortals who are in the underworld and bringing them back to the mortal realm. And he goes, "Listen, I can tell where this is going." And she says, "Let's say they died, but it wasn't their fault. I can't. But it's not fair. Their friends and families miss them. I can't bring mortals back from the dead. Please, you're the only one who can help me. I can't. I'm sorry." Big space between sorry and the period. And then he kisses her hand again.
He's so creepy.
Instead of being like, "Did you kill a bunch of people?
I know.
Is that why you're
seriously,
asking?"
Seriously.
He says,
He doesn't know this woman. Imagine if you, like, just randomly met a guy and he started kissing your hand. What the F? He doesn't know her, she doesn't know him.
"No."
This is the first time they're meeting.
Hey, but her body didn't explode out of control.
Yeah, what? Again.
She didn't go like, "Oh my god, these feelings." You know, like we're seeing in the current time.
No, she kissed him and she turned into a bunch of butterflies, but she landed on him like Starkers and nothing happened.
Yeah, and he kissed her hands twice. And so then, "Tell your friend not to fret, mortals are a dime a dozen." And her reaction to that isn't like, "What? Like, how could you say that?" It's like, vacant. Vacant.
No reaction.
No reaction. And she says, "Thank you for listening."
But he didn't listen. He didn't listen. He just said, who cares, man? Mortals, am I right?
Yeah. So then, there's footsteps, denoted by the asterisk. No, not
Yeah, I
pat,
know.
pat, pat. Just footsteps italicized
Seriously.
with asterisks. "I have to go. Wait, I still don't know who you are. Goodbye." "Hello, Adonius?" Is that who you
Yeah,
pronounce
that's
that?
his old name.
But is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, I
Adonius?
just think it's Idonius or Adonius.
Idoneus?
Whatever. I don't know.
Idonius?
Who
maybe?
cares?
So he goes, "Demeter, have a drink with me." And I don't know why he's making this face. He's like rolling his eyes, like, "Have a drink with me." Like, what is that expression? And his haircut is like modern Hades all of a sudden, instead
Yeah.
of being disheveled. And Demeter looks like Hera in this next
Yeah,
panel.
Demeter looks so out of or off model in this entire sequence.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, she's holding that jug, but not by the handle, which is what the handle's for. She's like,
No, but she's not even holding it like that. She's holding it like this. Like her top hand is like this. It's not like this, which is spanning around
No.
and like cupping the urn.
No.
It's like this. Like, it's so weird. Like, you didn't like hold an urn or like hold an imaginary urn to figure out how somebody would hold it. Like, you have objects in your house that you can like practice on and in front of a mirror to figure out how the hand would be drawn. I do that all the time.
Would you like some coffee?
I do that all the time. You know, I had a character holding a jug on her head, and I was like, okay, so how would you do that? Oh, it would look like this, you know, holding an imaginary jug over your head.
I take pictures of myself all the time.
Yeah, for reference with your hands. Like, it's so important as an artist.
Yeah.
And it's just lazy not to.
And so she's pouring this coffee. I guess she just came into the room with coffee. That's strange, though, because coffee... Because is this...
Coffee's from South America.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, geographically, like...
Coffee was discovered in South America.
This is, like, the mortal realm, right? Presumably, or...
Yeah, it's the mortal realm.
Yeah, and...
It's Greece.
Ancient times.
Ancient Greece.
Where'd they get the coffee from?
They should be drinking tea. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So she pours the coffee into this small glass. And then he asks
I think
her...
it's supposed to be a copper vessel.
Yeah.
But it's unclear.
Mm-hmm. Who is the pink goddess? Oh, you must have seen a nymph. I saw a pink goddess here. She's glorious. Who is she?
Hades is such a creep.
Yeah. And then he says I should ask Zeus. I wonder if she's available. And she turns the little vessel into another bottle. And then she goes, I changed my mind. Why don't we have a few more drinks? And then he makes a face, and we cut back to present time. He goes, what? And then you see a bunch of birds leaving his house because he yelled so loudly that they all left. And then that's the end of the 100.
The entire episode was just centered around their interaction, but we didn't learn anything. The only important bit was, can you bring back mortals from the underworld after they've been sent there?
Yeah.
And that could have been accomplished, again, in like 5 panels, because every time Hades and Persephone interact, the interaction is always needlessly dragged out with as many panels as possible.
Yeah.
But they don't actually say anything to each other. You know, like whenever they talk, they don't say much to each other at all. They don't really have anything in common. It's not like the conversation's long because, you know, the creators being indulgent and having them talk a lot just to show how well they banter together. There's no banter. It's just that instead of having multiple speech bubbles per panel, or even multiple sentences in a speech bubble, Rachel will split one sentence across like 3 or 4 panels, and within those 3 or 4 panels there'll always be like a silent panel where one character's just moving and the other one's reacting to that person. And then like you'll have again one sentence split across multiple panels where it's like, I just can't, I'm sorry. And it'll be like the first panel will be silent, I just can't, one panel, sigh, and then sorry. That's literally how she approaches all of the interactions between Persephone and Hades. And it's bizarre.
Interactions between pretty much everyone.
Between
right?
yeah. But again, like there's other people like again, Todd Allison and the Petunia Violet comes to mind in terms of a webcomic that squanders its story because it spends too much time on the characters and there's just too many characters.
Yeah.
But unlike Todd Allison and the Petunia Violet, Todd Allison and the Petunia Violet, when it squandered its story time, it's because the author was too busy throwing in lots of banter. Yeah. Like, there was a lot of dialogue in Todd Allison and the Petunia Violet. I would say, by contrast, Lore Olympus has very little dialogue. Like, the characters don't talk much at all. It's just that instead of putting multiple sentences in a single speech bubble, she'll just stretch a conversation out over 50 panels that could have been accomplished in, like, 10.
Right, and I think a really good example of efficient writing like that, where not one line of dialogue is superfluous, is Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. We studied the script. We just, read the script, and because we watched the movie recently, and we noticed, like, dude, every single piece of dialogue in this movie is either accomplishes something for the world building, the plot, the curse, or like character development, right? Every single piece of dialogue, every single interaction between the characters, and so it was so masterfully written that there is no like superfluous, useless thing where you watch it and you go like, why'd they do that?
They don't even include even the comedic relief.
Yeah,
manages to accomplish either a character, either something from a character perspective, a plot perspective, or like a world building perspective.
Yeah.
Even the 2 guards standing outside
Murtagh and Mulroy.
Yeah, Murtagh and Mulroy standing outside of the Interceptor.
Yeah.
This dock is off limits to civilians. Oh, the Dauntless is the power in these waters, true enough. but there's no ship that can match the Interceptor for speed.
That's crewed by the damned and captained by a man so evil that hell itself spat him back out.
Even those guys, their dialogue is supposed to be comedic relief, but it's also exposition, crucial exposition for that movie. Whereas you watch the second and third one, and a lot of scenes are just there for, like, funny or, like, fan service. By comparison, the first one, there's not a single piece of fat that can be cut off the script. They only kept the stuff that was integral to the plot. There's not a single, I think, based on the outtakes that I watched, Johnny Depp was ad-libbing a lot, and, like, making a lot of jokes that weren't in the script. They just cut them all out, because they're like, F that, Johnny Depp, like, stop adding stuff to the script. The script is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, stop ad-libbing, because it's just a waste of time. You're wasting the audience's time.
Yeah.
If it's a joke that doesn't add anything to character, plot, setup, or exposition, then why are you making the joke? But in the second and third movie, they kept Johnny Depp's ad-libs in.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, everyone loved Johnny Depp. Okay, Johnny Depp, just keep doing that, and instead of cutting it out, we'll keep it all in. And that's what made the movies worse. Or it's one of many factors that made the movies worse.
Yeah, they gave him carte blanche, and he just went scorched earth.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
He's like, all right,
Yeah.
joke time. And then you have, like, the Cannibal Island scene, while it was entertaining and well done, completely
It
unnecessary.
was completely
detour.
superfluous.
It was, yeah.
The whole
nothing.
key, the key, it is a drawing of a key. That whole thing, that was pointless
Nothing.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Lore Olympus does that a lot. Pretty much every single scene is really just there for fan service purposes, and then when it comes to, like, a crucial plot point, like the Act of Wrath, you realize that, like, oh my god, 50 chapters have passed, and I haven't really set it up at all, because I spent too much time on Ares and Persephone's backstory, so let me just cram it all into one episode. Like, there's very little time spent on plot versus superfluous fan service in Lore Olympus.
Yeah.
The ratio is all off. It's mostly superfluous fan service.
Yeah, and then, I mean, a lot of times, like, what I noticed when I was reading these episodes is I skimmed some of the top comments, and although a lot of time is dedicated towards fan service that accomplishes no other goal, it's sad because fans will comment, like, oh, you know, Hera caught Apollo, he's really gonna get it now. But, of course, that never happens.
He still hasn't gotten it.
Or, like...
3 seasons later!
Yeah, you know. Oh, Hermes caught Thanatos and Minty and Thetis. They're really gonna get it now. And it's like, no. So the stuff that the fans even want to see just doesn't get delivered on. And
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much goodwill that you can engender with fan service. I think one of the reasons Lore Olympus got popular was because it does do a lot of fan service.
Yeah.
And so it's, like, pretty fast at giving the fans what they want, but I think that also led to its downfall. Because it gave the fans too much Hades and Persephone without any setup, and then it ended up, like, screwing over its own stakes and its own plot, because it spent too much time with Hades and Persephone to the point that it's boring now. No one cares about Hades and Persephone because they've already gotten together.
Yeah, another thing that kind of reminds me of that, obviously I haven't seen the show in its entirety, but part of the reason why I haven't is because Supernatural was starting to do that. And I watched up till season 7, I think, but season 5, I thought the ending of season 5 was perfect.
Perfect.
And it could have ended there. It would have been a good show. But I think the fan base just wanted it to go on forever because they loved it. Yeah. And, like, I don't even, like, I had no desire to watch the later seasons because I was like, oh, man. I remember when Sam came back, and I was like, oh, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, the whole tone of the show was just off for me after that. And so, yeah, it was a shame. So now we're on episode 115, and going just based off what we previously saw, he just saw the memory, right?
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit confused reading the beginning of this chapter because he's there, he turns off the TV, and then we see his mouth pursed into a line, right?
But there's no expression.
No.
There's no expression. It's just like a close-up of his mouth. And
Yeah.
It's like,
but he reaches for his phone, and then he looks angry, and he dials a number that's no longer in service, so I'm assuming that's Persephone's number.
I think it's supposed to be.
So why does he look angry? Like, I just saw this memory of me and Persephone, I'm gonna call her because I'm so mad.
But it's not clear who he's calling. Like, it'd be one thing if it showed, like, calling Persephone and then he's like, she's not picking up, I wonder if there's something wrong with her.
Or if he saw that memory and he, like, put his hands on his face and went, oh my god, it's so embarrassing. And he goes, should I call her? Like, should I ask her about that?
No, why didn't he say, how come she never told me about this?
Yeah, or, like, she seemed really worried about the mortals. You know, what would have been better also for that memory is if instead of him being passed out with a bunch of pillows and stuff, if he was looking for, like, a place to throw up because he was really drunk, and then he opens a random, like, storage closet and Persephone's in there crying. And he's like, oh my god, are you okay? What's wrong? And she goes, oh, nothing. And he goes, oh, you're too beautiful to cry. And she goes, what? And he goes, no, tell me. I'll listen to your problems. And she goes, well, I'm asking for a friend. But you're like Hades, right? You're like the god of the underworld. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, is it possible? Ask the question about the mortals. And he says, no, that's not possible. And then she runs away looking very distressed and disturbed and sad. And that would give him a reason in the present to call her.
But it would also make Persephone think Hades is a decent guy.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, Hades being a creep. And it would also make Persephone's actions make a lot more sense than if she just randomly turns into a butterfly for no reason. But then you can't have her lying on his chest, Starkers, for no reason.
Oh, but
so you can't go with the sensible approach that actually accomplishes story and character objectives. You have to have her turn into a butterfly for no reason. Okay. It's cuter, okay? It's more fan service. That's what the fans want.
If you say so. So, I mean, given what we just saw, he looks so angry, and usually we have a lot of insight into Hades' mind, but there's no thoughts in these panels like, I should call her, what was that about? She's asking about mortals in the underworld. I should figure this out. Nothing.
Well, the other thing is, what I noticed as the story goes on and on, is that the writing is also very unclear.
Yeah.
Like, again, you have to assume that he's calling Persephone. Who's to say he didn't just call Demeter? Hey, Demeter, how come you got me extra drunk to make me forget that I saw your daughter?
Because the expression says Demeter.
Exactly!
The number being out of service says Persephone.
No, but you only know that because later on...
Yeah.
Because later on she accidentally destroys her phone.
Yeah.
But it's like, in this panel, I have no idea who he's trying to call. And it's like, why don't you just, like, throw in the panel where it says calling Persephone? It's not that hard.
No.
Like, she keeps writing in a way that is like, oh yeah, the readers will be able to read my mind and know exactly what I intended to put here. Like the butterfly thing.
Yeah.
I still don't know why she turned into butterflies. I still don't know, Rachel. I still don't know. I can't read your mind. You have to put it in the comic. You have to write it in so we understand. I don't know where she bought those handkerchiefs from. It's like, and where she got... Did she spend Demeter's money on that handkerchief?
That's what I think.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but I don't know. It's so vague.
3,000 drachma.
This is like an IQ test where it's like fill in or Sudoku. What is the number missing in this square?
No, Sudoku's easy. Sudoku has logic to it. This is more like, do you remember in Ghostbusters when Bill Murray is testing that guy for psychic powers?
Yeah.
And he actually has psychic powers, and he's guessing all the shapes correctly, but he keeps electrocuting him anyway.
Square.
Good guess, but wrong. All right. Tell me what you think it is.
Is it a star?
It is a star.
Very good. That's great. Circle.
Close, but definitely wrong.
Figure 8.
Incredible.
That's 5 for 5. You can't see these, can you?
What's this one?
It's a couple of wavy lines.
Sorry, this isn't your lucky day.
I know. I'm getting a little tired of this.
That's what this is like.
Rachel, please don't hurt me anymore, Rachel. I can't.
I don't know what's going on. The timeline, I don't know what's going on. What the characters are saying, I have to be like, I guess this is what she's talking about. I don't know. Like, what the characters are doing, I don't know why she turned into a butterfly. I guess this is what, I don't know. Who Hades is calling? Who is Hades calling? Why did Persephone land in that shopping center, but then act like, oh, on a whim. Oh, that's cute. Let me just go in and buy him a handkerchief. Did she plan on going in the shopping center? Was it just something that she happened to, like, pass by? Like, I don't know.
That's another thing, because it's like, she will strategically use when people have thoughts in their head and when they don't.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's another thing. In the comic I'm writing, right? I have it so that you only get the inside look into the mind of one character. And so for different chapters, in chapters where the point of view is distributed across two characters, I won't show his thoughts. But chapters where he's by himself and he's in his own
You mean
head,
your main character?
Yeah, the main character.
So if you have it from the POV of a secondary character, like, you have two main characters, the main character is the only one who gets any insight into his thoughts.
Yeah.
And then you have a secondary, like, the deuteragonist. Whenever you switch to his point of view and he's the focal point character, even then, you never see inside of his head.
Exactly. And we also don't see inside the main character's head unless I visually show that we're now having a shift into his perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if they're having a conversation over a table, right? And the deuteragonist says something, and then the main character focus in on his face, zoom in, pause for a second, and then he has a thought to denote, okay, now we're getting into this guy's head, and we're showing how he's reacting in his mind to what this person just said, but he's not saying it, he's not verbalizing it out loud to the secondary character. Just visual cues like that would be so helpful. Please, please, I'm begging you, I can't keep doing this.
No, it's like in a novel when you shift, like, there's a difference between having a third-person perspective that's tied to a main character, like in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's third-person perspective, but it's really Harry Potter's POV from the majority. There are times where we shift to other characters, but for the majority, everything's from his limited point of view, which is why all of the information has to be given either from other characters or from Harry eavesdropping. Is like the way that he learns about like the mystery or whatever. And then there's other books where it's omniscient. Like I would say Dune, and the reason Dune was so frustrating for me to read is because it was omniscient. Like you would just jump from character to character in their headspace all the time, from sentence to sentence. But that's like the tone of the book in general. It's never anchored to a single character.
Yeah.
And Lore Olympus does the equivalent of like fanfic, where like they say like, you know, there's asterisk, 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 Hades POV, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
Yeah.
But it switches POV every paragraph. But whenever it's Persephone's POV, it's like very, very, very scant. Whenever it's Persephone's POV, we're doing the novel equivalent of just listing out what happens with no thought or judgment attached to it. Like, Persephone's point of view is like, Persephone walked into the kitchen, Persephone grabbed an apple, she ate it. You know, meanwhile with Hades is like, Hades walked into the kitchen, his brain a turmoil of thoughts about Persephone and Minty. He grabbed an apple, examining it curiously. Would Persephone like apples? I know Minty hates apples. And that thought was on his mind as he bit into it, letting the juices mingle on his tongue. Like, you get so much more from Hades.
Yeah.
And just as a result, the writing is so unclear, and it's very disorienting. And I can't tell you what Persephone's character is. I don't know what her motivations are. You know, just the simple sequence of her going into Hades' room when he's drunk. I don't know why she acted the way she did. Or when she turned into butterflies. I don't know why she turned into butterflies, because we have nothing from her point of view. Persephone kissed Hades. She turned into butterflies, you know?
Yeah, but the odd thing is Persephone knows that that's part of her powers. Because she goes, you should have better control of your powers. She didn't go, butterflies, what the heck was that? I've never done that before.
She knows she committed the act of wrath, and she never thinks about it.
Oops.
It's never on her mind, ever.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? It's not like when she saw the shades in Tower 4, she was like, oh, this is what they turn into when they come over here.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's bizarre. It's so vague.
Even when she was given the coins to the shades, she
didn't say, like, maybe this will make up for what I did. And nothing! I feel so bad for them. I can't believe I like, put millions of people in here. You know, nothing! It's crazy.
Yeah, so,
after he calls presumably calls Persephone's phone and gets, you know, the number you've dialed is not in service. Then we go to, I don't know who's saying this. I think it's Minty because it's red.
It's Minty.
It's supposed, I guess it's supposed, no, but it's not, because isn't Thanatos the one telling Zeus at the end of the chapter? Because at the end of this chapter, it's revealed that Minty...
No, all three of them are. It's Minty first, then Thanatos, then Thetis.
Okay, so I think this starts with Minty's opening narration, but it would have been so much better if you had a panel of Minty dramatically with her eyes closed, like, how does the goddess of spring become the bringer of death? You know, like, dramatically focus on her face as she says, I'll tell you how. And then, like, focus on her mouth or something as she's, like, smirking or smiling wickedly, because she's getting her comeuppance on Persephone. But it's just, like, floating red text. So, again, you're meant to fill in the blanks yourself like a psychic. And, again, I don't know how much... Like, this might be nitpicking, because I don't know if this occurs to anyone when they're reading this, like, on their phone, just, like, week to week, whatever. But when I read on my desktop in preparation for these videos, that's when this stuff really sticks out to me, because I'm like, wait a minute, who's talking here?
Yeah.
Whose narration is it? It's not Persephone's narration, because she's not thinking about the act of wrath, because she never thinks about the act of wrath.
No.
So who's talking? And then you go to the end and you reveal it's Thetis, Thanatos, and Minty. But I'm saying, like, there would have been a better way to transition to this without it coming out of nowhere. Because we just go from the number you've dialed is not in service to how does the goddess of spring become the bringer of death? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Who's talking? Who's talking? What's going on?
Yeah.
And this is the season 1 finale.
Bringer of death, what?
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, like, yeah. I actually think that there's something about reading it on your phone that makes you kind of, like, numb to all of these questions and all of these issues.
Oh, definitely.
So I challenge I challenge people to read it on your desktop. If you're going to read it on your desktop. I feel like you would notice a lot more of it. Like, a lot more of it will jump out to you.
Yeah.
If you're reading it on a desktop versus on your phone.
Yeah. So we have a flashback now to Persephone, and we've got that thing again where she doesn't like being around other people. She seems annoyed, and she's sneaking off to be by herself to go take a bath. But of course there's flower nymphs everywhere, and I mean, if you were going to show somebody who feels stifled by being around other people all the time, why would you give them a crayon Shin-chan facial expression? There's no weight to that.
Well, the other thing is, if she hates being around other people all the time, then why in the first couple chapters she said, maybe then I won't be so alone when she went to the party.
Holding Hades' hands. Oh, I'm used to it.
No,
know?
but in the very first chapter, she said, maybe then I won't feel so alone.
This doesn't even seem like Persephone anymore.
And then she, like you said, she's always saying, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just used to being around people all the time. And when he was giving her the tour, she said, being in the underworld feels really lonely because nobody really talks to each other, or, like, nobody touches each other up here or down here. You know?
Down where? Down where?
Well, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
she said, I'm sorry, I'm so touchy-feely. Like, nobody
Yeah.
really touches each other down here. Nobody really has connections with anyone down here. It's
Yeah.
very lonely. But when she was in the mortal realm, she just wanted to get away from it all. Like, this is a total retcon of her personality.
I'll tell you why, alright? It's because all the flower nymphs are women. She doesn't want to touch women, okay? If it was a bunch of guys, you know, like beefy flower nymph dudes, she'd be all about, you know, touching, bathing, everything.
Like, I feel like you have a point, because she was fine with bathing with Hermes, and she, like, changed in front of him and never complained about it.
No, and Ares, it has been so long since I've met somebody new. It's a goddess land, a goddess, oh, forget that.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. You know?
True. I think you hit the nail on the head. Also, all the nymphs look exactly like Daphne, and they look exactly like Persephone, too.
By extension, yeah. And so she's like frowning down at her blank piece of paper that's in her lap there that suddenly materializes text in the next panel.
Yeah.
Olympus University commuting options. That reads as Olympus commuting university options.
Yeah.
It's bad graphic design. And then Demeter shows up with like snacks and a drink on the tray, bringing her favorite breakfast, and she says, good that you're warming up to the idea of commuting to school. And Persephone is like so standoffish. She goes, thanks. She says, let me fix your hair. And she goes, it's fine.
Where'd the pamphlet go?
I guess Demeter sat on it when she sat down.
Demeter's head is so big in this hill.
They just scaled her off because they're like, they drew her and she's like, oh, she's supposed to be bigger. You know? Cue Attack on Titan. Like,
then her eyes are like, where she's like looking at her own boobs. What the heck?
She's like eyeballing the breakfast she made for Persephone. Like, if this little brat doesn't eat this, I'm gonna eat it.
It's just crazy. The art is so bad.
Yeah. She goes, but if you let me fix it, that will be one less thing for you to do. Again, what's the through line? What else?
Let me fix your hair.
Yeah, but like that'll be one less thing for you to do. As if Persephone's so busy doing so many things all day, she's just sitting there reading a pamphlet.
I know.
One less thing for you to do. Oh my gosh, what is she, like friggin' Dudley Dursley?
No, she's Elon Musk sleeping on the factory floor.
Yeah, I mean, and she goes, I said leave it. I mean, she's really touchy with Hades.
Well, I like how Demeter's hand doesn't change at all. It's not like Demeter's hand was like this, and then it went to like this.
She's like, let me fix her hair. I said leave it. Oh.
No, it doesn't move at all.
Yeah.
It's in the same position. She's frozen.
So then she storms off. And that...
What is that nymph doing in the background?
I don't know what she's doing, man.
What is wrong with the art?
When are you going to stop being angry with me? Why is she angry with her right at this moment?
Like, again, the perspective keeps flipping. It's so annoying.
She goes, what was the point in all my studies? What was the point in working towards a scholarship? Is this about the commute again? I don't see the problem. You still get to visit Olympus and you get to live here too.
Yeah, Demeter has a point.
But I don't want to live here. But why is she angry?
Why does she not want to live in the mortal realm? She just says everyone thinks I'm a joke, and I do too. But it's like, why?
No, because
why?
No, she wants her to stay home and then commute to Olympus.
Yeah, but why is Persephone so against that?
I don't know.
And why does she say specifically everyone thinks I'm a joke and I don't blame them?
Yeah, what does
that have to do with her living at home?
Yeah, what?
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have to like extrapolate and interpolate so much. And again, it's like an IQ test where it's like what comes next in the pattern. Like, the sentence and the thoughts are never finished.
An IQ
it's like
test with a gun to your head.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god, hang on a second. Like, especially the timeline is like that too. Like, the whole thing is just...
No, the whole thing is like the first 2 sentences of a book and then the end, you know? It's like fill in the rest with your brain. And it's like, no, but I can't because I don't know what is supposed to be conveyed here. I don't know why Persephone wants to go to Olympus.
Yeah, because why is she angry? I mean... Let's try to, understand this. She's angry for some reason. Is she angry because she has to commute and she has to stay home and she wants to live in Olympus full time?
I guess, because that was the whole flashback with Artemis. But Persephone didn't say anything. She was just getting she was just getting pushed along by Demeter. And Artemis is like, oh, I feel bad for her. I'll volunteer to let her stay with me.
Yeah.
But Persephone didn't say anything in that chapter.
No, so she goes, what was the point of all her studies? Is she saying, like, what's the point of me studying if I have to live at home?
But that doesn't make any sense because she's still going to a good university.
I commuted to my university, and it's like, I would never say, like, what was the point of completing high school if I have to live at home? What do those two have to do with each other? Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
okay, so I had to commute, or I didn't commute, I actually argued to live on campus my first semester. And my reasoning was like, oh, I won't be able to make any friends or talk to people if I commute, which is true, but then I ended up hating it because I went to the wrong school. Like, everyone there was a jerk, and I didn't want to talk to them anyway. I came home every weekend anyway. But I can understand if that was her thing, where it's like, Mom, you won't let me pick my own friends. I want to pick my own friends. I don't want to be surrounded by the nymphs that you choose for me all the time. I want to have my own life. I want to be independent. But she doesn't say anything like that. She just says, everyone thinks I'm a joke, and I don't blame them. Again, it's like, it's so weird, because it's like, when it's Hades and Persephone, they're saying nothing, but it's stretched out over 50 panels. When it's Persephone and Demeter, where you should be explaining the main conflict between these two characters, I don't know why she doesn't want to commute. I have to work my own brain to like guess that she wants to be more independent and choose her own friends. But my cynical brain says it's because she wants to like hang out with guys.
Yeah, but when she says everyone thinks I'm a joke, who is everyone?
I don't know.
The other gods?
I don't know. She doesn't talk to the other gods. And it's not like they have social media in the mortal realm, so it's not like she, like, looks up social media and they're like, oh yeah, what a loser Persephone is. She still lives at home.
Do all the flower nymphs think she's a joke?
I don't know!
Like, that Persephone's such a loser.
I don't know who
she can't be trusted to bathe by herself.
She doesn't talk to anyone
know?
else. So I don't know what she's talking about.
Well, who's everyone?
I don't know who everyone is.
Why would they think you're a joke? What have you done?
Well, the other thing is, it's also inconsistent as to how much people know about Persephone, because in like some chapters, or like I want to say around episode 30 to 50 when she was first joining the Underworld Corp, they were like showing pictures of her getting like taken pictures of for the Barley Mother, heir to the Barley Mother fortune, you know, and there was paparazzi taking pictures of her with her mom. But here it looks like she doesn't have any contact with the outside world at all. So it's like, pick one. Is she like Ivanka Trump? Is she Ivanka Trump, where she's like the heir to a vast family fortune that people know of, and she's like, people think I'm a joke because I just live at home with you and I don't do anything on my own? Or is she just extremely sheltered and she doesn't get exposed to anything?
Yeah.
Because that was completely dropped after that episode.
Not only that, but you have multiple characters saying throughout, like sprinkled throughout the episodes we've read so far. Like you have Apollo. First of all, nobody at the party knows who she is, right? Except Zeus. And Zeus would know because he's like the king of the gods.
No, they all call her some minor B-grade goddess.
Exactly. Apollo says the same thing. And then when she goes to the hotel later, you know, at the end of this stretch of episodes that we've read, the cashier or the concierge says, Goddess of Spring, they got a god, you know, they got a god for everything now, right? So even he doesn't know. So
nobody knows who she is, and then even Ares thinks she's a nymph.
Yeah, so what do you mean everyone thinks I'm a joke?
Maybe she's one of those people who think she's really important when it's like, no one talks about you, dude.
Do you know who I am?
It's Apollo.
No.
You and Hades are always talking about me. We don't even talk about you. I don't even think about you.
Yeah.
It's like, same thing can be said about you, Persephone.
So, like, yeah.
Who's everyone?
Yeah, I don't know what she's talking about.
And again, the conflict is so underexplained. I don't know why she's mad at Demeter.
Yeah. And she says, I don't want to live here. That I understand. If, again, she wants to carve her own path. And then...
But that's us doing the guesswork.
Yeah.
That's never made explicit.
No. And so Demeter says, you know what I was doing when I was your age? Again, what does that have to do with anything?
She just says everyone thinks I'm a joke, and I don't blame them. And then
Yeah.
Demeter's like, I fought in a war when I was your age. It's like, is everyone okay? You know?
Demeter's acting like the grandpa with PTSD from that episode.
Who just keeps repeating.
You know, Drake and Josh?
Oh, yeah,
Remember?
yeah,
They go
yeah.
to that house for, like, dog sitting or something, and there's the grandpa, and he thinks he's under attack.
Yeah.
That's Demeter. You know what I was doing when I was your age?
Just like totally unprompted. Hey, Demeter, do you want coffee? You know what I was doing when I was your age?
Yeah.
Wake up. It's time to go.
Nice try, German!
And, we had to go in the snow uphill both ways. So she starts going on about that. She says she was fighting in a war.
No, she just says fighting in a war, and that's all she says. And then you have a wasted panel of Persephone silent, and then looking at her and saying, I know, Mama. I just feel ready for something else. Again, you could have made this one panel. It's 3 panels. You could have made this one panel.
If she knows Demeter was fighting in a war when she was her age, why didn't she think about that? What would Mom do in a situation like this with Apollo? And then you cut to her, like, killing people on the battlefield.
I know.
Were you in a war when you were her
She
age?
wasn't in a war when she was her age in that chapter. That was only added
God.
recently in this chapter.
This feels like an oddly specific interaction or something, like an oddly specific gripe to have with, like, a parent or something.
I feel like I was saying this somewhere. I think I was telling somebody else this, where I said, you can tell the parts of the story that Rachel really relates to. The fighting with her parent part has a lot more screen time and feels a lot more genuine, even though I'm still guessing at her motivations. Like, again, Rachel expects you to be, like, on Persephone's side, even though you don't, like, Rachel expects you to know exactly why Persephone wants to live in Olympus and be on her side, when it's like, no, please explain to me, I don't know.
Yeah, parents just don't understand.
Yeah, but again, this scene has a lot more, explanation and feeling, and it rings a lot truer than, for example, Persephone's reaction to being assaulted.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, like, you can tell or like, Persephone not knowing what to do in her job and feeling incompetent feels a lot truer than her reaction to assault or, Hades' reaction to Kronos.
Yeah. Or
the reaction to the slap.
Yeah.
The stuff that she has never experienced in real life, she just can't write it. And she avoids writing it because she's like, oh, I can't empathize with this. I don't know what to write here. So I'll just throw in a couple panels of lip service and then move on. But all the stuff about, like, oh, I can't control my body around him. That stuff gets a lot more focus and attention and a lot more detail.
Yeah, I mean, clearly she's never been in an argument with somebody who likes her, who she doesn't like back, like with Apollo, right? Because that was just like, but I like you. I don't like you. Go out with me. No. Let's have this conversation upstairs. The same exact one. Let's go back into the kitchen and have it again. That was... Like I said,
I will not eat your green eggs and ham. No, I will not say I am.
Yeah,
I will not eat them on a bus or a plane. I don't know how that book goes, but he just repeats the same thing over and over again.
What are you doing here, right? So, and then she finally says, I just feel ready for something else. I guess I just feel ready to, like, leave home. I don't want to stay home.
But write that!
Yeah.
Say, I feel ready to be on my own. I want to be on my own and have some responsibility instead of being coddled all the time. That's barely any more words, and it's so much clearer.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking for, clarity.
Yeah. So then Demeter says, I provided literal paradise on Earth for you, and you turn your nose up at it. Mama, that's not... No more back talk. You're grounded. I'm already grounded. Why was she grounded? What did she do?
Because of Ares, I guess?
No, she said...
Act of Wrath?
That hasn't happened yet.
Oh yeah, you're right. I guess because of Ares?
No, because she said, a smelly man is bothering me, and Demeter took her side. She didn't go Persephone, like, what did
No,
you
but
do?
then she told Eros that after that, like, I had no alone time. After...
Yeah, but that's not being grounded.
No, it was for her protection. Again, like, the writing is like, you have to read her mind to understand. Maybe she's, like, being sarcastic and saying, like, my life already sucks, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But again, like, you have to be psychic and, like, try to guess what she meant there.
Yeah. You can't send any letters for 2 weeks. What?
Her eyes are totally different
Yeah.
sizes.
4 weeks. And you eagle eye figured this out. Zoom and enhance. These mouths are the exact same, just one is flipped. And so she gets angry. And then she says this little line of dialogue, which I think is just extremely ridiculous. I wish Zeus would marry me off to some random god. Then I'd have a reason not to be here that you couldn't control. It's like, have you ever heard of a little book called 1,000 Splendid Suns? Which talks about the horrors of, like, marrying off young women to random men.
I mean, Persephone can't be that naive. And if she is, then it's like, why would you, like, Persephone can't be that naive, and Rachel should not be that naive.
No, absolutely, Rachel should not be that naive.
But
because...
if she, okay, and, like, it'd be one thing if Persephone is, like, a little brat, which she's acting like a brat in the scene, and then Rachel acknowledged it, and then Demeter says, okay, fine, you wouldn't be in my control, but do you think you'd be happy with a guy controlling everything that you can and can't do?
Yeah.
If you were married off to some random god, it wouldn't be me who has your best interest at heart controlling your every move. It would be some sleazoid guy.
Yeah, who would probably be older than you, abusive, hypocritical, and just a terrible guy. Again, 1,000 Splendid Suns.
I mean, Demeter should have had a rejoinder panel, or Demeter should have been framed in a much better light. Instead, we get to see Persephone's perspective a lot more, and Demeter seems like she never gets to explain her reasoning for why she wants Persephone to stay in the mortal realm.
No, and this is such a, like, it's such a weird thing for Persephone to say. Like, it's male-centric. I wish Zeus would marry me off to some random god. This is presumably after she saw Zeus torching the crops, you know? And this is, like, after knowing all the horrible things the male gods do all the time. And it's like, why would you have her say that? Like, that is so ridiculous. I mean, a better thing to say would be, like...
I wish I had never told Ares to leave. Then I could have run away with him.
Exactly,
because she spent a week with him.
Yeah,
she knew him more than she knows Hades.
Yeah, she could have said, I wish I never told you about Ares. I would have run off with him.
That would have been way better and less horrible to have her say that.
This is ridiculous. Like, who in their right mind writes a person saying this? That's like saying...
And not have her be in the wrong. Not definitively say that she's in the wrong.
That's like saying, I wish the colonizers would come and enslave me so that you couldn't control me. Like,
no, Mom, you won't let me dorm at school? I wish I could marry some ISIS fighter, because then you wouldn't be able to control me.
We're probably gonna have to edit both of those out of the video and think of a third one that's less inflammatory. Like, I wish my...
No, but it's basically the same thing. I wish I could marry some guy in ISIS. What's wrong with that? How is that inflammatory? That's basically what she said.
Yeah, like, I mean, you can't even say, like, I wish my high school boyfriend would knock me up so that I could...
No, because at least it would be a guy that you chose.
Yeah.
Not some random guy.
I wish the pedophile who's been emailing me on Neopets would kidnap me so
I know!
so that you couldn't control me anymore. Like, what? You know, who writes that?
That's the most inflammatory. I think the ISIS one is the best one.
Yeah, so we'll keep the ISIS one. We could have a thing where we beep our mouths out, and it's like, okay, third take, third comparison. You're an ungrateful brat who doesn't know anything of the world. Whose fault is that? And it's like, again, you know, this is...
I mean, again, like, you have to, like, read between the lines and be like, okay, Demeter's doing this for her safety, because presumably it has to do with the fact that she's a fertility goddess, and that puts her in danger. But again, why do I have to read between the lines? Why can't Demeter say, do you know what would happen to you if you were left unguarded in Olympus?
Yeah.
Some random god would take advantage of you. Cut to Apollo, you know?
Yeah. No,
literally the first week after she arrives there.
The whole thing that would have been better for the act of wrath is if Demeter said something like that. Like, you wouldn't last 2 weeks. I mean, you know? And again, you wouldn't last 2 weeks. That's exactly what happened in the present timeline. But what would have been better is, instead of the stupidity that we see next with the random flower nymph going, and like Thanos snapping into oblivion, would have been if she saw, like, a mortal man or a god, like, attempting to attack one of these women.
Nymph?
Yeah, a nymph, or mortal men attacking women, and she sees how horrifying it is, and she gets so scared that she does her act of wrath, right? That would have been topical. It would have been exactly related
thematically related to what Demeter was saying.
Yeah, and it would have made her go like, oh my god, you know? And it would also be, again, if this whole thing had been planned out, how amazing would it have been if that was her act of wrath, that was the inciting incident, was a poor woman was being attacked by some guy, and then when Apollo tries to step to her in the present, imagine if Lore Olympus was about her killing Apollo when he tried to...
And trying to hide the body.
Tried to assault her, and she gets Hades to help her try to hide the body.
You know what I think would have been really interesting, because she barely thinks about the act of wrath. It's almost like she forgot.
Yeah.
I think it would have been really interesting if Demeter hid it, which she does. If Demeter hid all of the evidence, but then Demeter also wiped Persephone's mind.
Yeah.
Somehow. She got her to forget the memory of the act of wrath. And then when Apollo attacks her, and then she doesn't respond to when Apollo attacks her, maybe because Demeter also, like, she's like, oh, your powers are too difficult for you to control, so I'm gonna seal away your powers, and I'm gonna take your memory away. Because right now, there's no real reason for me not to like Demeter. Like, Demeter's just protective of her child with good reason.
Exactly.
Like, anybody who has a young female child in this messed up world should be protective of their child, honestly.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted to make Demeter, like, a little bit more on the side of, like, overprotective to a fault, have her infringe on Persephone's autonomy in a way that's like she doesn't trust her when she really should, you know? So take away Persephone's memory and take away her powers or seal away her powers, and that way if she gets attacked by Apollo, she can't do anything.
Yeah.
She's literally powerless. Because Demeter's like, well, I don't want anything like this happening again, so Artemis, keep a really close eye on her, and she doesn't tell anyone that Persephone's been, like, basically neutered. She can't use her powers as well. And then Persephone can be, like, struggling with that. She's like, maybe it's just the stress, but I haven't been able to use my powers as well as when I could on the mortal realm. Or maybe it's because, like, we're not in the mortal realm, so I'm not as connected to nature or whatever.
Yeah.
So then when Apollo attacks her, then it would be like, you know, triggering a deep surface memory, and then she starts getting the memory back in fragments, and then her powers also start breaking loose because, like, maybe it's tied to that memory being sealed away or something. You know, like, her powers start reawakening, and then you can have the whole thing where she's remembering it in pieces, and it's really scary for her because she doesn't know what's going on. And then her powers start going all wackadoo around Hades and then around Apollo. And, like, that would have been just so much more interesting. It's like, why am I getting these, you know, intrusive thoughts that aren't my own? You could have the Mirrorverse version of Persephone being like, well, you already did that, remember? You know?
Yeah.
I'm losing control. And then Mirrorverse Persephone would be like, well, you already did that, remember? And she'd be like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that would have just been so much more interesting.
That would have been really interesting.
And it would have made Demeter more on, like, the morally gray side. Because right now, I agree with Demeter completely.
Same, yeah.
But if Demeter took away her powers and took away her memory and didn't trust her, then I'd be like, yeah. That might be something that Demeter should be faulted for.
Yeah, and what would have been really interesting is if she did cut her hand in the kitchen, but since she has healing powers, right, she heals her hand.
It's because she never established the healing powers at that point.
And you could have her memory literally be healed, right? Yeah. She could heal her own mind. After this traumatic thing happens to her with Apollo, she can have a period where she, like, her healing power is so strong that when she's isolated by herself, she heals herself, right? Without realizing, and then she starts chipping away at the seal that basically damaged the memory, and the memory starts to regrow, right? And you could have some really interesting visuals of that where she, like, goes to sleep, she's exhausted, and then she sees a tree that's, like, coming back to life, but the more the tree grows, the more grotesque it becomes, and it starts to look like the tree during the act of wrath.
Or you could have something where there's, like, a visual metaphor where it's like there's a steel iron door in her brain, and then, like, after the assault happens, like, you have vines crawling out, and then, like, as she gets more and more of her powers coming back to her, the door starts to get more and more corroded, and until finally the vines, like, wrap around it and completely crush it.
Yeah, and I think instead of having Hades not know anything about the mortals...
That was so dumb, dude. It just makes Hades look so incompetent.
He looks like an idiot. But he should know, and he should be trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Because he could be like, how did this happen under my watch? And he starts putting the pieces together once Persephone starts acting more and more out of control, you know, and he starts realizing, like, oh my gosh, this is what happened.
The fact that her act of wrath killed so many people and that Demeter covered it up, that is not as big of a deal as it should be. Like, Zeus is the only one mad about it. Hades should be the one who's the most mad about it because he's directly in charge of the underworld. He should be mad at both at Demeter because she hid this entire... Like, there's a huge conspiracy going on and Demeter was behind it.
Yeah.
Why isn't he mad? Like, that should have been a really interesting plot point. I think the conspiracy angle, along with Persephone missing time and losing memories and stuff and having these uncontrollable powers from the get-go, that would have been a really interesting plot hook. Because right now, there's no plot in Lore Olympus.
No, and especially if you keep elements like Hermes actually knowing and being paid off, he could be sneaking around the office. And they could be like, why is Hermes outperforming Thanatos at his job? Like, what is his goal? Like, why is he always here?
Well, he got the only reason he outperformed Thanatos is because he got a big jump in souls at this one point in time, and ever since then, Thanatos has not been able to keep up.
Exactly.
It's like, where did these souls come from, you know?
So Thanatos, Minthi, and Thetis could also be trying to uncover it, because they think it has something to do...
Well, they could be doing it, Thanatos could be doing it because he's like, effing Hermes, he's making me look bad, you know?
Right.
And then he thinks that there's something shady going on.
Yeah.
And then, like, they all, like, start looking through the accounts, and then they're also bullying Persephone. Like, that would have been a much more interesting story.
What would have been really interesting as well is if Hermes was always hovering over Persephone, like, when she's having difficulty using the computer, he bends over backwards to show her how to use it.
Because he doesn't want to make her mad.
He doesn't want to make her mad, and not only that, he could also be like, you know, there's an entire database of records here with all the souls that have entered the underworld. If she sees stuff and it starts jogging her memory, what's going to happen?
Right,
you know,
right.
The revelation of what she did is going to be so catastrophic that she's going to lose control again. Right? All over again. But, of course, none of that.
Yeah, nobody really treats the Act of Wrath seriously. Persephone isn't horrified at the fact that she killed, like, millions or thousands of mortals.
No.
Hades isn't, like, it's, like, no problem to him that she's a mass murderer.
No, he says mortals are a dime a dozen, but if you have a thing where it's, like, there's an overcrowding issue, or, like, a corruption issue, where it's, like, if you have, kind of like the Deep Roads and Dragon Age, right? Where if you have more and more of these souls who are growing restless in the underworld,
Tartarus.
In Tartarus, that starts to leak over into the underworld, because they're in Tartarus, and then the underworld is like above Tartarus, like it's the last stop before Tartarus, right? And so, in order to prevent, like, there could be pollution going on in the underworld, like really nasty pollution, smog, creatures running loose, and Hades is like, ever since that random spike.
You could have had the return of Kronos directly tied to the influx of souls.
Yeah.
And the Shades would start to grow restless, and then they would want to overthrow Hades, and then, like, maybe he's like, we need to keep a critical ratio of, like, Shades to, like, underworld employees, otherwise they're really unruly and difficult to control. But because of this hidden influx of Shades, that directly leads to the revolution that frees Kronos and then causes all those problems later. Because right now there's no connection. There's zero connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would have been so much more interesting.
It would have been really interesting. It would have been scary.
Yeah.
It would have been very, especially if Persephone's presence at Underworld Corp leads to a bunch of strange phenomena, right? That would have been very interesting. But of course,
no.
That's a different story. That's pretty much like an entirely different story.
Yeah.
So.
A competent version of Lore Olympus.
Yeah. So after that exchange, Persephone storms off, and then we see a little bit of a passage of time. She's growing flowers, I guess, with her powers.
Oh my god, I didn't even get that the first time I read this. Again, you're having to do a lot of guesswork. I just thought it was glittery for no reason.
I mean, she's going like this.
Yeah, but she does that all the time for no reason sometimes. Like when she was telling Hades, don't look at me, she was also doing that too. The snake.
Yeah, the snake.
The snake starting mantis style.
Yeah. So,
so I'm saying, like, the hand language tells you nothing. That's you, like, projecting.
I'm good at charades.
That's you, like, being really good at psychically guessing what's going on in a panel.
Yeah, so then we get a zoom out of the same previous panel as two flower nymphs approach her, and they both look a little bit scared. My lady, I was wondering if you wanted to take a break. What I want is for you to leave me alone. And it's like, she's upset at Demeter. Why take it out on the flower nymphs?
That's the kind of person Persephone is. She takes it out on the humans later, too.
Oh, yeah. It looks like they forgot to do the line art on her hands in the next panel.
Yeah, they look really weird.
And her dress.
Yeah. That panel looks very unfinished.
Yeah, because when she turns to look at the flower nymph, she sees... she sees something.
She sees the word croak misspelled with no punctuation, and the nymph isn't even centered in the frame. And it looks like somebody just took a bite out of her. And then the other nymph disappeared in that frame, too. Where's the other nymph?
So, when Persephone was taking rose cuttings, does that mean...
Oh, yeah!
Does that mean she was killing nymphs?
I have no idea.
Because these two ladies crumble to the ground, and then we realize it's because mortals are digging up roses. I guess if it's a cutting, it's not the same as digging up a rose.
It's not the same as digging up a rose.
And then we get my favorite character, Pickaxe Guy.
Well, these mortals just came out of nowhere, and then the nymph disappearing came out of nowhere. There was no build up.
No. It's like confusing. I had to read it twice at first.
It's like she was mad at Demeter, and then 2 panels later, these nymphs are dying.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Why do these guys look so angry as they're taking the roses?
I don't know.
But Pickaxe Guy is my favorite because he's just standing there.
He's just standing there, holding the pickaxe above his head, spinning around in circles.
Yeah.
Because he's not actually swinging it down, he just flipped
No, it's
from
because,
one pail to the next.
No, it's because that's one shot from the mountain, and then you change perspective now to the other side where we see this guy. I'm assuming this leg belongs to this guy with the hat, and then, because it's from one perspective, and then you flip to the other perspective.
Dude, you're like Captain Eagle Eyes here tonight, because I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, you thought he was just spinning.
I thought he was just spinning around.
Yeah, no, because it's a different perspective to show what's going on, and so Persephone then shows up and says, "Stop. Mortals, this land is sacred. Why do you defile it?"
Yeah.
What is sacred about the land?
It's not explained. There's no setup. There's no setup for the scene whatsoever. It's not like Demeter was like, Mufasa-ing to Persephone and going, everything that the light touches is sacred. This was never set up before. We've never seen that if you uproot a plant that kills a nymph. This is all being set up in the same exact... Actually, she says that after the nymphs die. So you just see the nymphs die and you're like, why are they dying? And then two panels later, she's like, if you kill these plants, the nymphs die.
Yeah.
But that was never set up. Ever.
No,
it just comes out of nowhere.
If the land is sacred, it's within pitching distance of that building.
Yeah,
in the background.
a village.
Yeah. So why would you give mortals free reign on a sacred land that's so important? And so they're defiling the land. And for every flower you uproot here, the life of a nymph ends. You hold my sister's carcass in your arms.
Yeah, but these are the same people she was yelling at 2 panels ago.
Leave me alone. Oh, oops. Goddess, we didn't know. And they didn't know because they're like, where's the sign that says the land is sacred?
No, there's nothing.
And so that's not good enough for her, though. She cuts the guy's head off with a scythe and she says, you knew, you just don't care. The guy said he didn't know.
The panel has really bad composition, too.
Yeah, I mean, she's already got the scythe down when she does that. I thought she was, readying herself, but she's already just cut that guy's head off. You couldn't have had it from behind her, where she's going like this, and then you see blurred his body falling one way, head going the other way as the.
Or you could have had it behind the guy.
Yeah.
You could have had the camera behind the guy as she cuts his head off.
Yeah.
And then you have the blurred silhouette in the foreground.
Yeah.
Head falls off, and then close up on her face. You knew you didn't care, because right now it's like she swings the scythe. And then she says, you knew you didn't care, and then you cut to the head on the ground.
You're like, what just happened? Whoa.
So his head waited for her to say that line before it fell to the ground?
Yeah. But again, did they know?
It was not set up at all. I have no idea what's going on here.
What's the sacred land?
There's no sacred land set up. There's no nymph dies if you uproot the roses. There's no setup of the village in close proximity. When Ares was there, he could have been like, why do you have a mortal village within spitting distance of your realm? Isn't that dangerous? And then Persephone could have said something like, oh, we and the mortals live in harmony here. They know not to trespass on these lands.
Yeah.
And then Ares is like, dude, I don't know. I've just been on a campaign of war in the mortal realms. You'd be surprised as to what lengths these guys will go to if they get desperate. Everyone's starving because of the war.
Yeah.
That would have been a conversation between Ares and Persephone that would have showed their characters off, that would have given them something to talk about and bond over and strengthen their relationship, and also show how he's cynical and she's naive, and then it also would have set this up.
Yeah.
10 chapters ago.
And not only that, but if you have soldiers wandering into their territory and attacking the flower nymphs, that would have also been something to really be angry about.
And it would have connected right to the war thing, because right now Ares is like, I'm always sent here for war, but it's like, what war? We never see any wars.
Where's the war?
Where's the war?
All these guys picking flowers are men who presumably should be going and fighting in a war, right?
I'm guessing the reason they're cutting down the flowers is because they need more farmland. But you could have made it so that they were sympathetic, and Ares saying because of the war everyone's starving.
Yeah.
That would have been more interesting, and it would have connected directly to Ares, so it wouldn't have felt like a waste of a chapter, because so far the whole Ares backstory thing was a waste of a chapter.
Yeah.
It was pointless.
Very pointless.
It was 2 chapters wasted. That does nothing for the story.
Yeah, so then we get a transformation sequence where she starts to grow into this large being with branches coming from behind her. She's making a very goofy expression.
Yeah, her expression and the perspective is really bad here.
The fleeing mortals are making very goofy expressions.
And she looks bald, but that's supposed to be her hair behind her.
Yeah,
it's just really bad.
Again,
the animation veers off into comedy because the guy's hat just leaps off his head in this panel where he's running away, and then her expression when she picks up one of the
Oh, look at his expression when
Yeah,
he's in her hand.
his face looks like South Park.
Could you imagine Aaron Yeager's mom?
I know, with a South Park face.
Oh, jeez. So then she sees the village in the distance. Why don't we go visit them? Looks great, but there's something missing. So then she sends a huge tree through the temple floor, and that guy is just frozen in place. The guy in the robe.
You didn't have to cut to the interior of the palace. You could have just said, looks great, but there's something missing, and then have the building from the exterior shaking and then being split apart by a tree.
Yeah, so then a bunch of fires break out for some reason.
I don't know why the fires break out. She's the goddess of spring, so why would there be fires? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, she jovially starts walking towards, and then she takes the little mortal and she impales him, and then you have another art shift, and we cut back to the narration, where the art is like it's different all of a sudden.
It's very cartoonish.
And she says, one by one, Persephone laid waste to the villagers. Her wrath was endless. She did it all without permission, and Demeter covered it up. Helios saw the whole thing. So you're supposed to have a permit to commit acts of wrath.
But why?
Zeus
What is
needs
having
some reason.
What is having a permit achieve? What's the reasoning behind needing a permit to commit an act of wrath if they're just mortals that no one cares about?
That's another thing that I was confused about, because it's like you would still have the problem of all these souls in Tartarus.
Yeah.
And you would still have the problem of people using their powers unchecked on mortals. Because it's like, I was wondering after I read that, is Hades taking out the paparazzi's eye an act of wrath? Because it's like it's kind of like Hammurabi, you know, an eye for an eye. Like old world punishment,
old world justice.
That wasn't considered an act of wrath, was it?
I think an act of, again, this is me being psychic. I think the difference between an act of wrath and what Hades did was that an act of wrath is applied only to mortals. But again, it's just me like speculating because that's never made clear in the comic ever.
Yeah.
It's never made clear in the comic. We don't know what the difference is between like Hades taking out the paparazzi's eye versus an act of wrath. We don't know why they need permits to commit acts of wrath. I don't know, like, is Zeus like, oh, if we commit too many acts of wrath, they won't worship us anymore? Like, there's no reasoning for it, so I have no idea.
Yeah, why even make it something that you need a permit for then?
Like, Zeus, like, when you had the Eros chapter, instead of that chapter being pointless, the flashback, you could have Zeus explain that they need permits for acts of wrath. Like, you could use that chapter to set up the act of wrath and have Zeus be like, Eros committed an act of wrath without a permit. You know what happens when people do that. We can't just go around killing mortals. They won't worship us anymore. And if the mortals no longer worship us, we lose our powers. Like, just a 2-sentence throwaway explanation for why Zeus gets really angry when people commit acts of wrath. And then have Eros, like, instead of friggin' Aphrodite just sleeping with him to make it go away. Because then it would be like, then why does Zeus have a trial for Persephone? Why doesn't Persephone just sleep with him for it to go away?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he doesn't treat Eros' act of wrath with the same gravity as Persephone's.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. Again, another character flip-flops just for the sake of getting to the desired end that Rachel wanted to get to.
Right.
His reaction to Eros' unsanctioned act of wrath should be the exact same as Persephone's.
Yeah, I mean, but that would have bogged down so much time, you know.
It would have gotten Eros out of the story, which would have been great, because I don't really care about Eros.
No, I don't like him. I don't like Eros, especially later. Can't stand the guy.
I think instead of the act of wrath being a flashback, it should have happened like concurrent to the timeline, and Persephone should have seen that happen. And then when she gets her memory back, it would be like, oh crap, we saw what happened when somebody committed an unsanctioned act of wrath, you know?
Yeah.
And if that happens to me, I'm done for. That would have been so much more like useful for the story.
Exactly. So they're telling Zeus, it's revealed, and he says that is a very serious accusation, and if it's true, Persephone will need to face the consequences. So that's the end of 115, and then the next episode is a season 1 recap.
Which we're not going to cover.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's all misdirection. I read the recap, and it's
all
like...
fake.
Yeah, none of that stuff has anything to do with anything. And the stuff that they bring up in the recap is still unresolved to this day.
Mm-hmm.